quite sure he's right. Obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Say it! Say it!
All right, I'll say it.
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
We're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
War. This is the end game.
All right, everybody. It is Monday, April 7th, 2025, the 78th day of the Golden Age. I'm your moderator, Chris Paul. Let's be reasonable. Big day today. Oh, it's so big this day. Lots going on. Our boy Yuhu has arrived at the White House. Benjamin Netanyahu, who I believe is fully under control and has done as much to expose the corruption behind Israel's regime, the fact that they are a global regime proxy state. He's done as much to expose those facts as the comedic actor in Ukraine has done to expose the very same about the homeland of the Khazarian mafia up there in Ukraine. We don't have much of a report about anything that they have met on so far. Apparently, Disclose is showing video of Trump pushing in Netanyahu's chair, treating him like a little lady, or maybe like his servant. That's how people are choosing to perceive it. Some are, I guess. But they canceled the press conference with our boy Yuhu, so who knows what that means. Don't know what Yuhu was planning to say to the world, but now he's not going to say it. So maybe we'll have more to say about the Yuhu meeting on Wednesday. But Donald Trump also today welcomed in the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. And if you are a sports fan, you know that baseball is no longer really a sport. It is basically only an exhibition where whoever spends the most money wins almost every time. The Los Angeles Dodgers have a yearly payroll of, I think, like $330 million. So every supposed person in the United States throws a dollar into the Dodgers pot every year, and that's how they pay the players. And you can win baseball games that way. Who knew? So they have had a visit to the White House today. As I said, there's some video from that, some of it very entertaining. So we'll just get a few fun things out of the way before we get into the serious things. I mean, saying that, I must acknowledge that I already talked about the ancestral seat of the Khazarian Empire. So whatever. Here is Los Angeles Dodgers star pitcher Clayton Kershaw.
We have a gift for you as well.
I like that. There you are. The Trump 47 Dodgers jersey. And some guys moving podium. Great job, guys. So lots of smiles for that event today. Donald Trump also had Dodgers star, who used to be an Angels star, Shohei Ohtani, into the Oval Office. And this was a funny interaction.
Boy, oh boy, what an athlete.
And 3, 2, 1.
You know what you do? And for your family. This is so great to have you. It's a great honor. You're an amazing athlete in person. Have a good time. Take a picture by the Declaration of Independence. It's great. That's a good one.
3, 2, 1.
What a guy. Thank you.
Take a picture by the Declaration of Independence. So that's a professional baseball team, the World Series champions, full of superstar players, looking plenty happy to be at the White House with Donald Trump, even on this horrific day of market crashes. How can they be so insensitive to all the billionaires losing their hats in the market? There's also this from the meeting with the Dodgers today. I had to clip this and post it because it was just so funny.
And others, we have a couple of senators here. I just don't particularly like them, so I won't introduce. Over the course of this amazing season, the members of this team I didn't think it was that big a deal, actually. It's Washington.
So he is referring to California Senators Alex Padilla and old shifty Adam Schiff. Love it. Cracked up the entire room. The entire room was laughing. Good for him. Funniest president ever by far. Speaking of the, we've talked a bunch of times about Donald Trump bringing out the Declaration of Independence and the timing of that with what I've been terming the collapse of the British Empire and the British Commonwealth over these many weeks, but truthfully, these many years since Donald Trump has been in office. And I've talked many times about how Donald Trump has told us that America's 250th birthday party is going to begin somewhere around the end of May or the middle of June. And we have a little more signal on that today. And hey, maybe people thought I was just insane for thinking that. And all of a sudden my link has gone away. Here we are. We are back. We are back in LinkedIn, but not, the website LinkedIn. The Sun, the U.S. edition, Don the March, Trump planning huge $100 million U.S. military parade on his birthday that will snake through Washington, D.C. How about that? Trump's birthday, of course, is June 14th. This is not footage of that. I don't know what that's footage of. Donald Trump is reportedly planning to splash a whopping $100 million on a huge military parade that will snake through the streets of Washington, D.C. on his birthday. For years, the president is said to have had his eyes on a full-blown military show displaying the U.S. might, but has failed to put up a working plan until now. Well, that's not exactly true. I mean, consider what we're dealing with here. A British tabloid letting us know about these plans. And they are taking the $100 million price tag from reporting done back in 2017 and 2018 about the price tag being around $92 million to pay for public safety services from the Washington, D.C. Metro Police and for the cost of the military equipment and the people coming and everything else. That is an estimate that they kind of just created. They said, oh, it's going to cost this much. You put a huge price tag on it, and then it looks not patriotic, just wasteful. And as always, they want to prevent Donald Trump from having a win when it comes to the optics. So they have to rebrand whatever optics he's going to present as somehow bad or ostentatious or a function of his narcissism or his ego or his self-centeredness. And that is what they're doing with this price tag, and the fact that they're referring to it as Don's birthday bash as if there's nothing else being commemorated. But let's go on. A source in Washington, D.C. has revealed that Trump is planning a massive military parade on his birthday on June 14th, which also happens to be the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. But it wasn't the U.S. Army. It was just the Continental Army, because that was 1775. Plans are to start the procession at the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, from where the contingents will snake through the streets of the Capitol to reach the White House. The grandiose military parade will showcase soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines marching in their uniforms in front of thousands of spectators, the Washington City paper reported. Plans are also to roll down battle tanks, massive military equipment, and aircraft and missiles, just as he first envisioned the parade during his first term. And maybe we'll even see the Coast Guardsmen sailing on boats and Space Force and rocket ships. That would be awesome. Just saying. In 2017, Trump wanted the U.S. military to throw a parade as a show of force after watching a French military spectacle the year before. So Donald Trump wants to be like France. He wants to top it. He said, we're going to have to try to top it. Again, Trump feels like the French display has somehow made him look small. So now he has to present as bigger and better than everything else. And by the way, that's kind of just part of Americanism. And, parades, they're not my thing, but why not? We got to start the 250th birthday party off right. This was the actual reporting done. Arlington County Board Chair Takis Karantonis told the Washington City paper that he was given a heads up about the parade by the White House, but with no firm details. It's not clear to me what the scope of the parade would be, but I hope the federal government remains sensitive to the pain and concerns of numerous military veteran residents who have lost or might lose their jobs in recent federal decisions as they reflect on how best to celebrate the Army's anniversary. These people are so deranged. The employees, the federal employees who may have lost their jobs, who might also be veterans, aren't going to like the parade, and Trump should then recognize this and not have a parade on their behalf, even though they were deemed worthy of being fired, probably for incompetence or disloyalty to the office of the President of the United States. Trump is also planning a so-called Great American State Fair to celebrate the country's 250th birthday in 2026. And so the Continental Army as the starting point of the birthday party, July 4th, 2026 as the ending point, and it seems like we are right on track. This is something that Trump talked about over 2 years ago, and I've talked about many times since, and it sounds like it is still going as planned. So we can move on from that. But important to recognize that Trump is cognizant of these dates and still marking them and their importance, because they are important. And I think that we're going to see significant transitions throughout that time. And I would hope that a lot of the major changes that are going to be implemented, the tone that's being set throughout this period since the display of an inauguration on January 20th, would be culminating at that point, and then we're getting into the after times, but that could just be my wishful thinking. We shall see. I was talking just a moment ago about the collapse of the British Commonwealth. I was actually going to play this a little bit later, but we might as well do it now. Some of you guys saw this on Devolution Power Hour on Friday. I would have loved to present this on Friday's show, but it did not capture my awareness until after that show. And I think Oh, no, it was out before then, but April 4th. So I missed this on Friday. I was talking about the response of the global regime to Liberation Day, to Donald Trump's announcement of tariffs. And my overall theory for that, and we'll get back into this a little bit later, is that tariffs and bilateral relations destroy once and for all the centralized top-down control system that is the one world liberal, if I can speak, international rules-based order. And I believe that is ending. This is Parade Magazine. On Friday, latest King Charles sighting has fans saying, "This feels like AI." The now viral video is being likened to something out of The Simpsons or South Park. And so we're going to see an Instagram video here captured by Reuters. And Charles looks like he is playing an orange recorder with his very disturbing looking hands. Now, what that is a carrot-flute or recorder. And it's not the appendage of an orange man, for instance. He's not doing that. If you think that that's what he's doing, that's disrespectful to a man who calls himself your king. And you're like, not our king, just the UK and the British Commonwealth. And we are definitely not part of the British Commonwealth. That's what the 250th birthday is for. Totally. So this is Reuters Instagram. Britain's King Charles, together with the London Vegetable Orchestra, played a nursery rhyme on a carrot on April 3rd. The orchestra comprises of professional musicians playing a wide range of music on instruments entirely made from vegetables. And King Charles seems like he may himself be a vegetable at this point. But let's see whatever they have coaxed this reanimated corpse into doing. Good Lord. What could that be other than a humiliation ritual? And if the king, if the head of the British Commonwealth is being routinely, publicly humiliated, then you got to reassess what it means to be the monarch of the British Commonwealth and these 54, 55 countries, whatever it is, around the world. He's the king of Canada, the great 51st state, or not. I mean, I guess we'll find out. Can you be king and also be filmed playing a carrot flute? I would suggest that the answer is no. And we're talking about this British monarchy that has, for our entire lives, presented as the most concerned about optics that we could ever imagine. There's a process and a routine and a plan. Everything is organized and scheduled for everything they do. And of course, they allow the tabloids in the UK and elsewhere to make fun of them because that's how the whole ruse operates. They are avatars of a hidden power, the British Crown, which are the bankers in the autonomous city-state, the city of London proper. So the monarchs are avatars of that power, and they get the good and the bad of that, which makes the people feel free. We're told that they only have a ceremonial role in the first place, even though that's obviously not true. If the monarch can approve who the prime minister is in a Commonwealth nation and can veto their laws, that's not just a ceremonial role. But they are avatars of power. So they have to be made fun of, or else the people wouldn't feel like they actually have a role. If the people couldn't make fun of the actual powers, if they were prosecuted for that, for instance, then the whole ruse would fall apart. And we're actually moving ever closer toward that. You can see them targeting people who do go after the regime. And it's because the people going after the regime here, as there, as in Germany, and the rest of Europe, as in all parts of this world at this point, are going at the actual power, the global regime power that goes beyond the leaders of nations, even when they're called monarchs and presented with crowns and silly costumes, playing carrot flutes. Avatars of power, not actual power. And we are being shown that their actual power is either being taken away or just gone. Speaking of power that is gone, let's take a look at the big activist movement we had over the weekend. Just a few weeks after we had AOC and Bernie doing their little rallies, inviting the same people who attend all of the rallies around the country, probably well-funded and well-organized, people being transported. Now, this is similar in its astroturfed nature, but I doubt these communists are being flown in from other places. They're just having these events in all of the liberal cities where they were so successful bringing people out for the Summer of Love in 2020. This is the Associated Press. Angry protesters from New York to Alaska assail Trump and Musk in hands-off rallies. So they want the duly elected president and his assigned representative, his chosen representative, to get their hands off the government. You're not allowed to touch our democracy, they say, ignoring the obvious and overwhelming mandate of the people given to Donald Trump and the widespread support for Elon Musk and his efforts, at least narratively, toward government accountability. They are protesting. They are protesting. Look at these liberals. Now, there's not much diversity in this picture, and immediately we should understand that to mean that this is a movement predominantly of older white men and white women. So they're probably just concerned that their privilege is being taken away. That's what we're told. That's what we've been told this whole time. I can't help but have learned the lessons that they taught us. And so that's what we can say about this picture. These are just old white people, and we don't have to listen to them. I didn't make the rules. If I did make the rules, things like this wouldn't happen. Here we have some resisting, some really hard resisting. This looks like a very professionally made sign. That looks like a very professionally made sign. I guess we're doing Let Gaza Live and some Middle Eastern stuff. There's some, what do they call these Palestinian scarves? Is that a kifa? I'm probably wrong about that. Multiculturalism failed me. What am I going to say? So that's blood on a hand and on a face. Oh gosh, Donald Trump, he's doing it. He's got blood on his hands. He's causing wars all around the world. That never happens. He's caused 0 wars so far, but hey, I guess he's bombing the shit out of the Houthis, or so they say. I mean, do we believe that? You can. I don't. They keep showing us video, though, and that makes it real. Here are some signs made by these 60-year-old liberals, white, all of them, again. He bankrupted 6 casinos. Now it's the economy. Oh, nailed it. Trumpster in a dumpster. Get rid of waste. That's Elon. Fraud. That's Trump. Abuse. That's JD. Accidentally deport them all. Oopsie. What a powerful sign. IKEA has better cabinets. Damn, lady, that is a hardcore burn. Democracy, not oligarchy. Well, I think you are supporting the wrong side, my liberal friend. Stop the coup, save our democracy, says this screaming old lady. Rise up, Florida. How about that commie fist right there? What else do we have here? We can't read all their signs. Oh, maskies. Oh, the flag's upside down. I heard that was unpatriotic. You're not allowed to show that off, even though they went after, who was it? Clarence Thomas? No. It was Alito. I think Alito's wife. That's what it was. So they're having a big protest movement again, a la the Women's March in 2017 and the Summer of Love, BLM nonsense, and Antifa, the domestic terrorism of 2020. And we need another one. They need another one to show people that actually, no matter what you think and what your neighbors are saying and how happy everyone is, that some changes are being made and we're not being ruled by these communists anymore. No matter what it seems like in your real life, look on TV and you will see very clearly that there is a massive resistance to Donald Trump and his agenda. Now, I don't know if this lady is just there to troll or if she's serious. And the truth is, these people are so deranged and suffering so deep into a total inversion within the false reality with every aspect of their lives that it is possible that she doesn't understand what she's saying. But take a look. I don't know what that is, to tell you the truth. Is that a rhinoceros? A unicorn? A unicorn in a gas mask? A pink pussy hat / trans-colored unicorn in a gas mask. Strictly for my knitters. Danger, the TV told me to be here, she says. Well, it could be a she. Hard to tell. If you're wearing pastel blue and pink and white, well, it's hard to tell if you're a she, if you're wearing a mask. It's hard to tell if you're a he. You could even be beyond the realm of he and she if you are wearing those colors and a mask. But that's not all the footage we have from the big protests this weekend. Here we are. Check out this sad little girl.
Protest right now in New York City, anti-Trump, anti-fascist protest, and I have one question. Where the fuck is Gen Z? These people are cheering, they're talking like it's just the 60s, it's just like the 60s, and they're having conversations and walking slowly. There's no fight here. There's no youth here. It's all 30-somethings and their children. And then seniors, and God bless everybody who showed up today, but I'm really fucking disappointed in the youth turnout. Where is the youth turnout? This is your future that is going to be impacted by the actions of the Trump administration. And it's really this easy to show up in numbers and show your government that they're outnumbered. That is the point of a protest, to show that your government, that they are outnumbered. And if Trump leads you to believe that protesting does nothing, then this is what we get. We get a crowd of 30-somethings and their children and seniors and barely any teenagers. Barely any teenagers ever. Like, these, oh my God. I can't even. Like, where are you going if you're not going to the protest right now? What's more important?
That poor little girl has watched way too much TV. First of all, what is she wearing on her head? That's cultural appropriation. I know that she's probably trying to express her oneness with those poor people of Palestine who we're told are getting the shit bombed out of them by our boy Yoo-hoo. But who knows? There is no Gen Z there. And it sounds like there's no Gen X there either. And what they have are boomers. They're millennial children. Now, not all boomers, don't worry. And I know that some boomers have Gen X children. In fact, I am the Gen X child of boomers. Okay. Just to be clear, I know hashtag not all boomers, not all Gen X, not all millennials, not all Zoomers. I get it. I get it. Okay. But we're just still going to operate with generalities and generalizations sometimes because they're useful. Doesn't matter. If you get offended and you say, I'm not like that. Okay. Okay. But there's no Gen X, no Gen Z, just boomers, their millennial children, and their small children being brought to this thing. It's like the 60s. Remember when we all participated in that psyop? And again, as a child of boomers, I actually feel great sympathy. I think the boomers got the biggest dose of all the psyops that anyone could ever imagine. And the millennials got a good dose, and Gen X got something of a dose, but I don't know. There's something, I don't know. But when you think of the 60s, you had assassinations, you had the space bullshit, you had mind-altering drugs, the sexual revolution, rock and roll, pop music, so many things. The Vietnam War, those protests, just a crazy amount of psyops that would spin anyone off into a false reality. And I know not all boomers, okay? But that's been passed down. And these people are happy to relive it. This makes them feel like they're doing something. But this protest movement is nothing. Kafia. Did I say that right? I was close. Kifa is what I said. No, Kafia. Thank you. I was corrected by Wolfie in the chat. Thank you. But there are no young people. That was the Democrat base. We were told. Why aren't they here? What do they have to do that's more important than this? Says that very sad girl. Legitimately anything, sis. Legitimately anything is more important than marching for principles you can't even describe. You know that Trump is bad. You know that Elon Musk is bad. You call them fascists. You don't know what fascism is. You don't understand collectivism. You don't understand that you're the collectivists. It's maddening. It's actually unbelievable. And you know what? While we're on that particular subject, I have to raise this just briefly. I was wowed this morning. My pal Ash in America sent me this tweet from James Lindsay, and I was stunned. I mean, James Lindsay is very dumb, okay, and very arrogant. He thinks that he is based. He actually, if you look at his social media bios, it says based in the bios. He believes he's like based and that he's right of center and all these things. And he has, at great length over the last 10 years, critiqued Marxism, cultural Marxism, and postmodernism. And he actually combines those. And I'm not saying there's no overlap. There is some overlap just by virtue of postmodernists being often Marxists. But the postmodern observation, as we've talked about at great length over the last couple of years, does not require leftism or collectivism, and it doesn't require atheism or nihilism or globalism or any of the rest of it. That is, I believe, a mistake made by postmodernists. And I was actually just spending some time reading Jean Baudrillard again over the weekend. He's the author of Simulacra and Simulation, the book that was in Neo's apartment at the beginning of The Matrix and talks about the simulation. And I think that they properly observed that there were layers of falsehood on top of reality prime. And they just thought that underneath all of that, there was actually nothing to grasp onto. And that is because they are atheists and nihilists. And James Lindsay is an atheist, and he's a Zionist, and he's a globalist. And he says, is this the Great Reset? He's putting that on Donald Trump and, of course, Trump supporters who support Donald Trump. And he thinks that he is going to save society from Trump supporters. He believes the biggest problem in the world is white Christian nationalism. He is a collectivist. He is a globalist, which makes you a collectivist. He is a Zionist, which makes you a collectivist. And he is an atheist and a scientific materialist. And it's very hard not to be a collectivist when you are that basket of things. But the real question is, whose great reset is it? Whose agenda is that? Scientific materialists, atheists, globalists, nihilists, Zionists. It's their agenda. They believe that they are going to correct the material reality in their own image, based on their numbers and their science. This is what is going to be best for the world. We're going to control the system from the top down in a centralized fashion because most people are useless eaters and we need to plan things for them. If we leave them to their own devices, they're going to mess everything up. Whose great reset is it? Why, it's yours, James. And of course, he would deny that, because if you are an atheist, globalist, Zionist, scientific materialist, academic, well, then you believe that atheism, globalism, nihilism, and scientific materialism are defaults. That's the admission price for entering the serious conversation had by the academics. That's why there aren't too many people in academia who aren't all those things. So when they get together in their intellectual dark webs and on their normie podcasts, James Lindsay and Eric Weinstein are coming together now. By the way, Eric Weinstein did a speech at Jordan Peterson's ARC, which is like ARC, which is the intellectual dark web equivalent of the World Economic Forum. They're going to try to replace the World Economic Forum. And I guess Klaus Schwab just stepped down the other day, but they're making friends now. But in academia, all of these worldviews are part of the default worldview. And so if you're James Lindsay, then you think that some people in academia occupying that set of worldviews are for the Great Reset, and some of them are opposed to the Great Reset. And he identifies as opposing the Great Reset while being all those things, because all of those are the academic defaults, and anyone who is not those things should not be taken seriously in conversations. Except, of course, he doesn't realize that the people outside of those things are those actually opposed to the Great Reset. James Lindsay is still totally committed to empowering the people whose agenda the Great Reset is. It's incredible. It really is incredible. I'm shocked by these people continuously. But what are you going to do? It's amazing to me that he does not see himself as all of the things that he pretends to battle. Now, we talked a couple weeks ago about James Carville. Actually, maybe it was it just last week? Yeah, I think we brought Carville up just last week as well, right before Tuesday's fake elections, that Carville told us we're going to show the world that Republicans had lost all the momentum. The Trump momentum was gone, and that Democrats were ascending. There's going to be a rejection of Donald Trump, a rejection of Elon Musk, and it was going to be proven in the results of the fake elections that the Democrats lost 3 out of 4 and are still presenting as wins, because the 2 they lost in Florida were lost by less than they were reported to have lost them last year. And if you still believe in elections and you are willing to delude yourself into thinking that the same people who voted last fall have somehow shifted in their opinion or didn't bother coming out because they're now depressed at what Trump is doing, then I guess you can make that argument. It's an impossible argument to make in Wisconsin, because the people voted overwhelmingly, 62-37, I think it was, for the voter ID law to be made a constitutional amendment, to become part of the Wisconsin Constitution while also voting for a Supreme Court justice who promised to overturn that very measure. Okay, so that's a fake election. And the results, therefore, cannot prove anything other than the election's fakeness. And hopefully there are some people actually recognizing that. But let's check in on James Carville. This was Carville, I think probably on Friday. This was posted on Friday, but Thursday or Friday. Western Lensman shared this on X, formerly Twitter.
How disgraced must these companies that are sucking up to him, that are giving him tens of millions of dollars for access. Do you know what's going to happen? Do you know how this ends? Do you know these collaborators with the country is going to feel toward collaborators with this regime? Maybe you need to go in history and see what happened in August of 1944 after Paris was liberated. They didn't take very kindly to the collaborators. No, it was not a very pretty sight in the streets of Paris. I'm not saying that these people should be placed in pajamas and have their heads shaved, march down Pennsylvania Avenue and spit out. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that that did happen. And I'm saying that these people betrayed the French nation in the same way that I think that these law firms and these giant corporate conglomerates are betraying the United States. What their comeuppance is, I can only guess. I don't believe in any kind of, I don't believe it should assault anybody. Spitting on somebody is an assault. I warn you, I don't recommend doing that. I guess involuntarily shaving somebody's head is another assault. I mean, it's illegal. Don't do that. But these people are a disgrace to the law firms they represent, to the companies that they represent and are supposed to be in the self-interest, and they're a disgrace to the United States.
Well, that's pretty hardcore. So he's talking about the law firms that, in his estimation, have capitulated to Donald Trump's threats and executive orders and whatnot. And he is calling them Nazi collaborators. Now, that is, in my view, an entirely skewed view of history. To think that somehow normal Americans choosing a president who himself has many of the qualities of a normal American, despite his wealth and access and fame. That's somehow the sign of Nazism? Were the Nazis elites or were they normal people? And some normal people definitely got on board, but primarily elites. And they made a deal with the Zionists that James Carville supports. The descendants of the very same ones. He's concerned that Donald Trump's collaborators are going to have problems in the future. That's something of a threat. I mean, whatever, okay? People on our side have certainly said things along these lines. I wouldn't be surprised if collaborators with the actual Nazis in this society, the people who are doing all the things that the Nazis did. And by the way, let me pull this up. We haven't done this in a while. I think those people will be eventually treated quite harshly. And we're going to have a whole society full of good Germans who, here we are, who announced themselves throughout the very deadly pandemic. And since, I mean, look at the list of things that these regimes have done. I put this together, I think, in 2021 or 2022. Censorship and propaganda, segregation, forced medical experimentation, eugenics, and with the goal of creating superhumans, funded and deployed Nazi armies. You wouldn't think that the regime that at the time was represented by the fake and illegitimate president Joe Biden would have gotten there. But of course, they did that in Ukraine. And the superhumans, of course, they have the transhumanist movement. Concentration camps, well, they certainly talked about camps. They certainly talked about having like COVID camps, etc. They definitely have work camps and factory towns that are part of the plan. So that's not too far off. Ethnic division and discrimination, false flag events to stoke hate, persecution of political opponents, stolen elections, illegally changed laws. They had a Reichstag fire here, style event, I should say, on January 6th, 2021, the very violent insurrection. And of course, the communist regimes imprisoning political opponents, indoctrination and re-education, the erasure of history, the seizure of property and businesses, food shortages and famine, work camps, censorship and propaganda once again, destroying the environment via failed planning, everyone equal based on compliance, decisions made by bureaucrats and experts, changing our language. What has the regime not done? And James Carville has been there at every step to make the argument that it is an unfortunate reality that all of those things have become necessary based on the quality of evil in their opponents. It's really something. Okay, let us continue on, and we'll get into some of the tariffs and economic stuff. I just had Ghost of Base Patrick Henry send me a link that I had forgotten to grab, and he just did it. So a hat tip to him, and we will be there in just a second. Now, on Devolution Power Hour, I briefly touched on this article from the Financial Times, and this was from Saturday. Now, the author is yet another academic globalist, Quinn Slobodian, and down at the bottom of this article, it notes that Slobodian, where is it? Oh, it's in his, I think it's in his bio. He is publishing, that's not where it is either. I don't remember where I found this. I think I was just looking him up. Maybe it was on his website or something. He is writing a book about how the sovereign nationalist movement worldwide is essentially an outgrowth of neoliberalism. Good luck, guy. I don't know who you're going to convince with that, but it's not going to be MAGA. You're not going to deter anybody. Oh, gosh, this globalist is calling us liberals. Oh, no. This collectivist is calling us leftists. James Lindsay, all over again. All these people, man. It's so dumb. The whole worldview is so blatantly corrupt, and now its guts are out. Okay, it's being exposed to the world. It has been impaled, it has been sliced open, and its insides are displayed to everyone. You can see there's nothing there. All right. The academic emperor wears no clothes. These people are retarded. Direct economics, the great MAGA experiment. Now, saying that, here we are. The writer is the author of the forthcoming book, Hayek's Bastards, The Neoliberal Roots of the Populist Right. Honestly. Now, having called this man retarded, and it's kind of retarded, I was really referring to all of academia, but also this guy. He has a worthwhile observation here. Now, it's entirely possible for retarded people to correctly observe things, right? Like you can point out, that matches that. And there are a broad spectrum of those in the truth community as well, always just matching. Look, I found a match. Okay, what's it mean? Anyhow, he has a good observation here. For years, right-wing populist parties have used forms of direct democracy to pursue their goals. From the referendums banning minarets in Switzerland to the Brexit vote, the idea has been to short-circuit the establishment and tap straight into popular will. in the United States, MAGA is now experimenting with something different: direct economics. Similar to plebiscites and referendums, direct economics seeks to do an end run, around experts and incumbents and communicate straight to individual citizens and voters. It tries to demystify what have long been naturalized processes captured in stock market indices, interest rates, and even fiat currency, to expose these as mere tools of the elite in further oppressing the true people. We can see direct economics in action in 3 different ways. And by the way, is that wrong? First is the centralization of executive power in U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff policy. The arbitrariness of his tariff announcements is taken as a demerit by many, yet arguably, from the point of view of direct economics, it is this very arbitrariness that is their strength. When European traders have to wait until Trump wakes up to know what the flow of the markets will be for the day, this is not a sign of weakness for him, but of power. It shows that the abstract ideas of most favored nation treatment or multilateral sovereignty pooling were always shadows on the face of U.S. omnipotence and the president's capacity to shift action at a global level. Now, I thought that was very interesting and very well observed. The president, upon waking up, can shift global markets. And we are meant to believe that this is bad in some way. And it might be bad for those continually extracting the people's wealth through the medium of global markets. Those markets are not free markets. They are highly regulated. They are highly controlled. They are highly manipulated. And we know that because they control the entire apparatus and they control the information weapons that move markets. And primary among those used to be Twitter. And perhaps it still is, just minus some of that control factor, it seems. But I guess that remains to be seen as things kind of come out in the wash. But at least he's properly observing that what is often the attempted framing of all of this as somehow destructive instability or bad for Trump or a result of Trump's incompetence or his ego or narcissism or whatever they attribute things to from the state of their Trump derangement. It's not that. It's a display of power. And we're going to see a little bit more of that today with the way the markets have shifted and on what basis they have shifted. But I want to play one more clip. And again, we went through this briefly on Devolution Power Hour the other night, but this is from Scott Bessent's interview with Tucker Carlson. And let's hope this is queued up correctly.
Of our allies have not been good partners. If tariffs are so bad, why do they have them? Why do they have them? Right? Or if the American consumer is going to pay all the tariff, then why do they care about tariff? Right? Because they're going to eat them. So I think that this is the beginning of a process. We're going to reindustrialize, that we have gone to a highly financialized economy. We have stopped making things, especially a lot of things.
And we can leave it there. But he's saying, why are we being told that all of this stuff is going to hurt the United States by these other countries around the world that are now coming to the table to negotiate? They're negotiating against their own best interests in favor of our best interests because they're worried that Donald Trump is going to hurt us, the American consumer? Well, that doesn't make any sense at all. These things are features of what Trump is doing. They're not bugs. The instability is a feature. The uncertainty is a feature. Look at what Trump is making the markets do. What does it mean about the markets? That's the question people are ultimately going to be asking themselves. This is from CNN today. And, you know, these articles are all over the place, of course, because we were told throughout the weekend, and most particularly yesterday and into the evening last night, that the markets were going to collapse today. It was going to be the biggest disaster that any of us have ever seen. And I actually haven't checked on where a few things are at in the last couple of hours. So let me just take a look. Oh, doing just fine. Everything's doing just fine. It's amazing. U.S. stocks are extremely volatile as Wall Street rattled by tariffs. So it was supposed to be a collapse. Last night it had all the signs of collapse. Japan, collapse. China, collapse. Europe, they're going to collapse. Just wait until the U.S. collapses. Okay, still waiting. U.S. stocks were extremely volatile on Monday, tumbling, surging, and then bouncing around in every direction as traders searched for any sign that President Donald Trump's tariffs could be negotiated or halted. Markets around the world had tumbled earlier in the day over concerns about how Trump's sweeping tariffs might upend the global economy and stymie U.S. economic growth. U.S. stocks opened the day in bear market territory, but surged an hour later on rumors that the Trump administration may pause tariffs perhaps for several months. Yes, we were told that Jamie Dimon was requesting a 90-day pause. I think that was Dimon's request, right? Let me just check the machine so I'm not giving you misinformation. Hold for processing. Did Jamie Dimon suggest a 90-day tariff pause this morning? No, that was Bill Ackman, who we will get to briefly. But there was a rumor that Trump had decided to go ahead and do the 90-day tariff pause. And it was on that news, we are told, that the markets completely rebounded. So the great crash happened for an hour. That rumor turned out to be just that. A White House official called any suggestion that Trump would pause tariffs fake news. And I think that was actually the Rapid Response 47 account. And the Dow, which had risen nearly 900 points, was back down once again. The Dow was most recently trading down 1,100 points or 2.85%. And this is from a few hours ago. The broader S&P 500 was 2% lower. The NASDAQ was 1.8%. Nothing happened. All the freak out, it's all Trump's fault. The rebound on a rumor that apparently was believed by people inside Goldman Sachs. I don't know the provenance of the email, but there was an email that came out and went around the internet with the name, but a managing director or something at Goldman, talking about that 90-day tariff pause. And then the idea is that traders actually went out and traded on that information, despite it being confidence in these people who control the system and profit from the system is dropping quickly. And we were supposed to all understand that it was now our time to abandon Donald Trump and hate Donald Trump toward the end of last week. And then all the headlines were, Trump's approval is polling better than ever. It's never going to work, commies. It's never going to work. The thing you used to do is broken beyond repair. It's never going to work. Oh, man. What is... Oh, it's just the drainage thing. The end of the drainage clip. When Daniel Plainview is saying, that ship has sailed. It's gone. Love it. Anyway, we'll leave that alone. We don't need to do drainage today. We'll save it for when it's appropriate. Divining Rod 555 in the chat, $10 on a Rumble rant. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time and wisdom, Chris. Well, thank you. Caramaga, $30. Thanks, Chris, /APL. And When the people demand it, you have to give the people what they demand. Una Panuna. You're going to shout out Una Panuna? You got to have an Una Panuna. Dun, 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 dun. Just checking the chat again briefly, and that's it. Okay, we're good. Let us continue. Donald Trump was asked on Air Force One yesterday. Actually, let's just go ahead and play it. I don't need to set it up. Let's just play it. Here we are.
Unwilling to tolerate this idea of a Trump put. Is there a threshold?
I think your question is so stupid. I mean, I think I don't want anything to go down. But sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. And we have such a horrible, we have been treated so badly by other countries because we had stupid leadership that allowed this to happen. They took our businesses, they took our money, they took our jobs, they moved it to Mexico, they moved it to Canada, they moved a lot of it to China, and it's not sustainable. We're not going to do it. Now we have hundreds of billions of dollars is pouring into our country on a monthly basis. It's pouring, it's already started because I put tariffs on. And eventually it's going to straighten out and our country will be solid and strong again.
A stupid question. If there was a level, they were asking, is there a level like if the markets crash at some point, will you stop doing what you're doing? Like, is there a point where you'll say uncle and scream for mercy? And Trump responds, naturally, that's a stupid question. And it is a stupid question. Accepting the premise of the question just because the media is asking the question, that's an error in public communications. And it's an error that we've watched politicians continue to make our entire lives, to the point where we should understand that it is orchestrated. Trump is not doing any of that anymore. And we actually, I think I pointed out last week, another instance of him doing that. They tried to drum up the whole Signalgate controversy over again. They asked a question about Mike Waltz or something, and Trump was like, let's get out of here. You're still asking about that? Something else. You know, it's asked and answered. They're trying to keep these, that issue alive. That's the point of that question. And right here, they're trying to say, well, are you just going to let it keep crashing? The answer is yes. If it keeps crashing, if it doesn't keep crashing, well, then did I let it keep crashing or not? He's putting into place that which he needs to put into place. And whatever shakes out after that is going to be what shakes out. The consequences are the consequences. If the consequence is that the markets crash for some period of time, not even down to the level they were at last year, well, that's okay. The change has to be made. So you take the medicine. The patient was sick. This is the medicine. And hopefully the patient will get better. It was funny. These were the images going around after the bloodbath this morning and all the red. Then we get all the green. Dow Jones back up, NASDAQ back up, S&P 500 back up, all at the same time. I guess the markets just realized that Trump was going to have a 90-day pause, and then they rebounded, they recovered. Also, this one here. You got to love how they go, just the entire screen is all green on Fox Business. It's all red and dark colors when the market's crashing, but look at that. It's all green now. Everything's okay. It's like St. Patrick's Day over there. It's all so ridiculous. It's all so ridiculous. Donald Trump posted this morning, hence the title of today's episode. On Truth Social, the United States has a chance to do something that should have been done decades ago. Don't be weak. Don't be stupid. Don't be a Panican. A new party based on weak and stupid people. Be strong, courageous, and patient, and greatness will be the result. I actually have every confidence that he's correct about that. I believe, as I have believed for years, that we are on the verge of an American Renaissance. We are at the dawn of that American Renaissance. It is coming. I have no doubt whatsoever. So don't be a panican. And it kind of sounds like maybe he's from the Old West or something. Don't be a panican. A panican, the political party of the weak and the stupid. And I would suggest that the Uniparty is the party of the weak and the stupid. And it is also just somehow the Uniparty and its supporters that are panicking. How does it work? It's so hard to understand how these things work. I mean, they work in the most natural way we could ever imagine. They work exactly as we would expect them to work. And that's just another aspect of the total failure that is academia. Academia has basically been devoted throughout certainly the last century to figuring out real world practical justifications for why the false reality is true and reality prime is false. All of it in total opposition to how things would just obviously, naturally make sense. And now we are seeing the collapse of that false reality and the return of common sense and the results of the return of common sense, which is, the result primarily is things make sense again. We're actually not trying to convince ourselves that lies are true all the time, which makes for much happier people. This is from The Economist today. Market carnage goes global. And again, as I always remind, the Financial Times and The Economist are the mouthpiece outlets of the global regime's elite. The Economist, the Financial Times, and I would say maybe Project Syndicate. And then next level down, you go to New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Those are more mainstream. These are the really highfalutin mouthpieces of the global regime and its propaganda state media. Market carnage goes global. And I'm going to scroll down a bit. We're just going to hit a couple sections of this. Is Mr. Trump bothered? It seems not. On his social media network on April 4th, he reposted a video claiming that he was crashing the stock market, quote unquote, on purpose, so as to lower government bond yields, thus allowing public debt to be refinanced more cheaply. After a weekend of golf in Florida, he gave another explanation during his flight back to Washington. I don't want anything to go down, he said, with Scott Bessent, America's hapless Treasury Secretary, hovering behind him. But sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. Now, it is really something to hear The Economist call Scott Bessent hapless. Do they mean he's unable to protect them from his own boss? I think that must be what they mean, because Scott Bessent was very much of the regime prior to this Trump adjacent and now Trump administration period. So just the last couple of years, Scott Bessent was with the Soros financial, in the Soros financial orbit, and he was a board member at the International Crisis Group, the globalist think tank that legitimately plots the overthrow of countries and lets globalists know where to direct their donor money and what it's going to go to. But let's continue. I would suggest, to cap that off, I would suggest that they are getting very concerned that Bessent is not doing the thing they thought he might be able to do to help their cause. But continuing. The something he wants to fix has not always been clear, this being Trump. Are his tariffs meant to redress a shortfall of government revenue, a lack of cooperation on drug trafficking, or unfair impediments to American exports? On April 6th, the problem he emphasized was America's trade deficits, not just the country's overall imbalance with the rest of the world, but also its bilateral deficits with individual trading partners. Europe's barriers to American exports, he said, had taken a lot of our wealth away. Even if both sides reached a hypothetical deal to remove their tariffs, it would not be enough, he argued, to make up for the unbalanced trade of the past. And we went into some of that last week. The point is not just erasing a trade deficit. The point is breaking up the global regime's centralized top-down system of control over the world's economy. Let us continue. In a somber televised address, Lawrence Wong, hold on, let me scroll down here so that we can, where are we? Where are we, Wong? Ah, man, here we are. Okay. In a somber televised address, Lawrence Wong, Singapore's prime minister, compared America's tariffs to the wave of restrictions on trade in the 1930s. The global calm and stability we once knew will not return anytime soon, he said. We cannot expect that the rules which protected small states still hold or will still hold. That's really something. And once again, we hear them hearkening back to the 1930s. Who's Donald Trump in that analogy? How much pain lies ahead? Last week, brave retail investors snapped up American stocks even as they plummeted in value. According to JP Morgan Chase, a bank, it's funny that they note that, individual traders bought $4.7 billion in stocks during the market turmoil on April 3rd, the largest daily inflow in a decade. Will this gumption survive 2 days of further losses? It seems more likely that something will break. What has it broken? It doesn't seem to have broken. So the institutional investors are losing it, and individual investors, retail investors, normal people are buying the dip. That's not what was supposed to happen, according to these people. It's not what they want to have happen. And as always, they have to pitch some positivity to their readership. Global regime communicates to us to hoodwink us. It communicates to itself to hoodwink the people who are able to be hoodwinked. They want everyone to believe that things are still going along just fine, because if even the supporters of the global regime understand that they are being hoodwinked and they begin to withdraw and they begin to leave the regime and stop supporting the implementation of that agenda with their money, well, then the whole thing starts collapsing. And I think that that's probably what we'll see next. Concluding, on his flight back to Washington, Mr. Trump was asked if there was a threshold of market pain he was unwilling to tolerate. Is there, Trump was asked, a Trump put? His reply was not so promising. I think your question is so stupid. And we heard that clip ourselves. Now, this article caught my eye. And I wonder if this is some kind of signaling, or maybe there is some real dispute. But this was Semaphore from Saturday. A battle Elon won't win. A battle Elon won't win. Musk takes on Trump trade guru Peter Navarro. And Peter Navarro also has, or always has, his hands are always doing so many things, and they are doing things in this here picture. 117 into that video, I guess. Nice catch. A PhD in econ from Harvard is a bad thing, not a good thing, says Elon Musk on X, formerly Twitter. Elon Musk's frustrations, this according to Shelby Talcott of Semaphore, with White House trade policy became public Saturday when he called for a vast free trade zone and took aim at fellow White House advisor Peter Navarro over Donald Trump's new tariff plans. Musk, who has largely stayed out of the growing debate over Trump's decision to go all in on tariffs, responded early Saturday morning to a post from an X user praising Navarro, a longtime Trump aide and key architect of the president's tariff announcement. The Tesla co-founder argued that a PhD in econ from Harvard is a bad thing, not a good thing, adding that Navarro hadn't built shit. And I would suppose from Elon Musk's perspective, that is one of the very important things. And it's hard to disagree with him about that particular aspect, despite how much I like Peter Navarro. Economists doing economics and people who actually run things are not the same. The public disagreement cast a light on a deeper division among Trump's coalition between his MAGA base and the business and tech leaders who have rallied around the president. Some in the administration downplayed Musk's remarks, with one official noting that Musk has made negative comments about others in the administration in the past and that everyone has, quote unquote, their opinion on matters. Navarro did not respond to a request for comment. Some choose to make it public, some choose not to, this official said. I don't think this White House especially can be defined by sort of the traditional rules. We have people with strong opinions. Sometimes they publicize it, sometimes they don't. At the end of the day, everybody's on the same team. But others inside the administration and close to Trump appeared confused and surprised about Musk's decision to publicly go after Navarro and by extension indicate his displeasure with the president's decision. That's a battle Elon won't win, a person close to Trump warned. Nobody is tired of Peter. That's good, because I appreciate the Peter Navarro trade policies. So what is Elon Musk doing? Is Elon Musk expressing his own position? And is he on his way to becoming some sort of MAGA traitor? He was with us and he's hit his limit. Now we've gone too far. Elon Musk off the Trump train. Is that what we are to believe? I don't imagine that it is. Now, is he potentially leading other people like him in terms of the character description? Big tech, billionaires, tech forward globalists, the tech libertarians, kind of their avatar being Peter Thiel, and then, J.D. Vance along that, Curtis Yarvin and his political philosophy along those lines as well. Is Elon Musk operating as some kind of Judas goat for those people? And is this a signal to them? Hey guys, go ahead and say whatever you want. You can take the free shots you've been waiting to take now. See, I did it. It's okay. Now you go ahead and do it. And when they do it, they have not built up the goodwill among the MAGA base, among Trump supporters, even among Republicans in general, that Elon Musk has. So their comments are not going to be seen in the same light and taken in the same way. Before we get to some of that reaction, let's get to Donald Trump in response.
Elon Musk has signaled for zero tariff between the U.S. and Europe. Is that a place you'd like to also get to?
Well, the problem is that Europe has made a fortune with us. Europe also has had a tremendous surplus with the United States. Europe has treated us, it's a little smaller, but they've treated us very, very badly. China has, but Europe has also. Europe has been very, very bad to us. Europe has taken our leaders for a ride. They don't take our cars. They don't take our food products. They don't take anything. And we take their cars, Mercedes, Volkswagen, BMW. You know, we take their millions of cars. They take no cars. They don't take our farm product. They don't take anything. Europe's treated us very badly. We put a big tariff on Europe. They are coming to the table. They want to talk. But there's no talk unless they pay us a lot of money on a yearly basis. Number one for present, but also for past. Because they've taken a lot of our wealth away, and we're not going to allow it to happen.
Sir, have you talked to any tech leaders over the weekend about the tariffs?
Yeah.
So Donald Trump does not sound like he's going to take Elon Musk's advice about a free trade zone in Europe. And I find that very interesting. Because Elon Musk has now said the thing, inviting others to say the thing, even though saying the thing is not going to work and will be in direct opposition to Donald Trump. And so all Elon and Trump have to do is navigate whatever fallout there might be, narratively speaking. That's it. That's not a big assignment. They can do one event and have Trump say nice things about Teslas and Elon make some nice jokes about Trump's opponents, and it will be clear to everybody that they're just going to be fine. Throughout the last few months, there has been such an organized effort to attempt to create a divide between Trump and Elon. And now they see they're in. And in my estimation, I would be surprised if this wasn't the true state of things. It seems like that billionaire tech libertarian contingent who thinks that they're just going to install President J.D. Vance in 4 years, keep the Uniparty right controlled opposition in place, keep the election fraud system and PSYOP in place, and just march on forward after outlasting Trump. That seems like it would be a goal to them. So they would also be hoping that Elon Musk is cleaved off of the Trump administration, brought back over to them, and then he can help lead that movement and popularize that thing, leaving Trump loyalists and MAGA behind, them capturing the big part of the Republican establishment and whatever part of MAGA wants to move into that future, because they're sold that that's going to be the future of tech forward prosperity, etc. That has always seemed like the plan. And Maha would stick with that, of course, because that is generated by ultimately the same people. And that I can imagine them seeing as a winning coalition going forward. They can still work in line with their globalist counterparts, their European counterparts. They can please the neocons by taking over whatever countries need to be taken over, economic sanctions, whatever it is, the financial system. Who knows what they're going to implement as far as central bank digital currencies go. Now, I don't think that model is going to win. And I've said that many times, but that's the Great Reset as it represents on the Uniparty right. And the great resetters on the Uniparty right were more than happy to jump on board the Trump train and ride it as far as they could before kicking Trump and MAGA off to the side. And that's what we've been talking about with, the two Western gangs riding down each side of the canyon. They're meeting at the train at the same time. They're going to start shooting at each other. One side's going to win. The other side is going to be killed or run off and be gone. And then the train will go down whichever tracks are chosen by whoever is at that point conducting the whole thing. I believe that's going to be Donald Trump. I believe that's going to be MAGA. I do not believe it's going to be the movement of tech libertarians on the Uniparty right, ushering in the Great Reset in their model, which does include more sovereignty than the top-down centralized control of the global regime might offer, but is nonetheless not America first. It's not even really countries at that point. So let us get to some of the response. This was the prominent response. This has really made the rounds. And Bill Ackman is one of those billionaires who became pro-Trump. Let me actually ask the machine when Bill Ackman first became pro-Trump, because I feel like it was once the fake Republican primaries and the Ron DeSantis campaign began spiraling and becoming obviously not the solution. When did Bill Ackman begin to support Trump? This says April 2024, Ackman announced that he would not support Joe Biden due to Biden's perceived lack of support for Israel. And on July 14th, Ackman publicly endorsed Trump the day after assassination event number 1, the day before the non-successor J.D. Vance was chosen, or I shouldn't even say chosen, just announced on Truth Social in a one-sentence post that he would be filling the role of running mate in the fake campaign leading up to the fake election, and now serving as the quote-unquote vice president with the same legitimacy that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris held. The country is 100% behind the president on fixing a global system of tariffs that has disadvantaged the country. But business is a confidence game, and confidence depends on trust. A confidence game sounds like he's calling it a con. And by the way, July 14th, that was it was one day after assassination event number 1. That was itself 2 days after Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance's owner, and Reid Hoffman, who is a commie billionaire, got into a shouting match over martyring Donald Trump. Just to be clear about how these dates line up. Bill Ackman, the day after assassination event number 1, that's when he endorsed Donald Trump, being no longer able to support Biden because Biden wasn't strong enough on Israel. Real Donald Trump has elevated the tariff issue to the most important geopolitical issue in the world, and he has gotten everyone's attention. So far, so good. And yes, other nations have taken advantage of the U.S. by protecting their home industries at the expense of millions of our jobs and economic growth in our country. Well, that's not really an accurate description of things, is it, Bill? But by placing massive and disproportionate tariffs on our friends and our enemies alike, and thereby launching a global economic war against the whole world at once, we are in the process of destroying confidence in our in our country as a trading partner, as a place to do business, and as a market to invest capital. The president has an opportunity to call a 90-day timeout, negotiate and resolve unfair asymmetric tariff deals, and induce trillions of dollars of new investment in our country. If, on the other hand, on April 9th, we launch economic nuclear war on every country in the world, business investment will grind to a halt. Consumers will close their wallets and pocketbooks, and we will severely damage our reputation with the rest of the world. That will take years and potentially decades to rehabilitate. We'll come right back to that in just a moment, because that's the big thing as far as I'm concerned. What CEO and what board of directors will be comfortable making large, long-term economic commitments in our country in the middle of an economic nuclear war? Well, are they American, Bill, or are they not? Because if they're not, then who gives a shit? We're moving into a different system. And oh, by the way, they've already made those commitments. Donald Trump has shown us all that they've made those commitments. I don't know of one who will do so, Ackman says. When markets crash, new investment stops. Consumers stop spending money, and businesses have no choice but to curtail investment and fire workers. Well, if it was actually free markets under which we were operating, that might be true, but it's not. It's controlled markets. It's manipulated markets. It is a system of markets, a top-down, centralized, controlled world economic system. And, I actually want to go ahead and play this quote, play this little clip by the comedian Tim Dillon. Really funny clip sent my way by Starborn over the weekend. So let's just pause the Ackman post for just a second, and we'll do this.
Our economy is run by intelligence agencies and international criminals. Do you understand that there is no such thing as an economy? Stop it. It's fake. It's fake. So they can arrange it, make it do whatever it wants. You go, what's that apartment? $200 million. No, it's not. It's fake. It's all fake. It's money laundering. It's criminality. It's blackmail. It's the intelligence agencies and a lot of their friends high up in finance and tech arranging the world in ways that allow them to win. They're trying to eliminate human beings. It's just what it is. These tariffs might be a mess. These tariffs are probably economically bad, short-term, potentially long-term. But when we talk about the economy, understand what we're talking about. We're talking about an international system where criminals thrive at the expense of human beings, a class of biological entity they'd like to eliminate as soon as possible.
It's fake. The economy is fake. And he's saying that in all the right ways. It's a controlled system meant to exploit us, meant to extract the wealth of the people as they put in their labor, as they put in the fruits of that labor, and they are systematically extracted. The economy is not what we have been told by the academics, by the economists. It is. It is actually a controlled system from the top down for the benefit of the global regime's bankers. Let us continue with Ackman. When markets crash, we went through that one. Here we go. And it is not just the big companies that will suffer. Small and medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs will experience much greater pain. Almost no business can pass through an overnight massive increase in costs to their customers. And that's true even if they have no debt. And unfortunately, there is a massive amount of leverage in the system. Business is a confidence game, he says once again. The president is losing the confidence of business leaders around the globe. The consequences for our country and the millions of our citizens who have supported the president, in particular low-income consumers who are already under a huge amount of economic stress, are going to be severely negative. This is not what we voted for. Actually, Bill, it is what we voted for. These people do not understand Trump. They do not understand MAGA. They do not understand the American people. This is paternalistic the right word? I think maybe it is. They know better. No matter what, they know better because they're the people doing the important things. You see, that's why they're so wealthy. They control the global economic system from the top down. They won't tell us that. They'll pretend it's all free markets, but they're the ones who know how things work. You can create a system and create all the rules of that system. We could go back to baseball, as we talked about at the top of the show. Baseball's a game. It has rules. Somebody made up those rules. They're not natural rules that emerged. They were set out in a certain way to make the game function in a certain way. And in the modern era, they just put all sorts of ridiculous rules into place, like the shot clock, the pitch clock, stuff like that. They just add on other rules because now they care about the entertainment value of the product above and beyond anything else. And so the system of rules and the justification for these rules is even now detached from what makes the game good or what makes the system function properly. Okay? If you make up the rules for a system and you learn all the rules of the system, that doesn't then suggest that you understand how things work in a state of nature or in a state of actual free markets. A controlled economic system, understanding how the rules of the controlled economic system function, is not the same as understanding how things would function naturally without the top-down control. And these people are always speaking to how things function within that system of top-down control, complaining you're going to break the system. You don't understand. The system doesn't work that way. You're going to break the system. If you do that thing, it's not going to work within the system. And again, the point is to break that system of control. The president has an opportunity on Monday, Ackman says, to call a timeout and have the time to execute on fixing an unfair tariff system. Alternatively, we are headed for a self-induced economic nuclear winter, and we should start hunkering down, make cooler heads prevail. And if Bill Ackman is speaking as an economic elite, a Zionist, and a globalist, then perhaps that's exactly right. The we in that instance is not everybody. He's attempting to portray that the we he's referring to is everybody. He's just looking after the good of everybody. But that's not what he's doing. He's looking after the good of the global elite. Alternatively, we are heading for a self-induced economic nuclear winter, and we should start hunkering down. Well, by all means, guys, start hunkering, okay? Remember how your system that you put in place made tens of millions of Americans and hundreds of millions, if not billions of people worldwide hunker down in 2020 from the very deadly pandemic that probably didn't even exist? Not saying nobody was poisoned, not saying no one was poisoned. Okay. We already did our hunkering down, Bill. Most of us lost many of us, I should say, lost our careers. We lost our friends, our family, our acquaintances. We lost people because they were systematically murdered by hospitals. We've hunkered. You guys haven't hunkered. In fact, you amassed wealth throughout the entire period. While the normal people in the world had their lives, economically or otherwise, collapsing, you profited. So if you have to hunker, I don't know, man. I guess that's just how those chips fall, isn't it? And let's just come back briefly to Ackman's post that I had highlighted earlier. The part of the post, I should say. We will severely damage our reputation with the rest of the world. That will take years and potentially decades to rehabilitate. Years and potentially decades. Our reputation. Well, if he was actually talking about our reputation, that's not how that works. If he's talking about the U.S.'s role in the global top-down centralized controlled economy, that's going to take years, perhaps decades to put back in place. Okay, that's what we voted for. Not that votes are real, not that elections are real, but that is what people support. Anti-globalism has been successfully sold, not only to the United States of America, but to the countries of the world. The opposition to globalism is everywhere now. And it's not going to stop. The multipolar world order is emergent. And how do you fail to recognize that if your finger is on the pulse? He wants us to oppose the emergence of the multipolar world order when that is exactly what all of this has been leading to. He continued last night, or this was from last night, going off on Howard Lutnick. I just figured out why Howard Lutnick, Bill Ackman says, is indifferent to the stock market and the economy crashing. He and Cantor Fitzgerald are long on bonds. He profits when our economy implodes. It's a bad idea to pick a Secretary of Commerce whose firm is levered long on fixed income. It's an irreconcilable conflict of interest. A response from a man named Ross Hendricks, who I'm not familiar with. I just figured out why you're having a temper tantrum. He says, your firm is heavily long U.S. stocks. Ackman responds, yes, I am proudly long America. So his investments in the U.S. stocks that are being hurt with the market, quote unquote, collapse that we've seen over the last 2 weeks, not destroying the U.S. economy, if that's a thing, just hurting the people who have amassed all that wealth over the fake and illegitimate term of Joe Biden, who have now made themselves Trump aligned in order to cleave off that segment of MAGA, whatever they can attract back from the Uniparty right and the tech libertarians and move forward. He says he is long America. Did he sound long America in that post when he was talking about the effects of our former friends and partners, in his view, from around the world? That did not sound like Bill Ackman was long America. What could he have possibly meant? Snowcat Operator and Starborn were sprinkling subscriptions around to the channel on Rumble. So thank you very much for that. There was a question in the chat earlier where there is one place to subscribe to what it is I do. And the primary place is, as it's always been, I'm your moderator.substack.com. You can subscribe to other features of other websites. If you want to subscribe on Rumble, that is a way to support this channel. It's not a requirement. Everything that I put out is put out eventually for free. Now, that might stop in the future. I am considering a model where all of my social media is behind that Substack paywall, that I operate a Substack chat and that I use Substack notes as my only outgoing social media, and remove myself from Truth Social and from Telegram because I want to reclaim my time. Okay. And I want to stop having my content just constantly ripped off and my ideas repurposed by people who don't deal with censorship and are acceptable to the normie sphere. Okay. And so as a defensive response to now 5 years of that happening, I may cordon off my content. And if that means that it reaches less people, well, so be it. Okay. It's ultimately got to be word of mouth from the people it is reaching for it to reach more people. And the barriers to the normie sphere have to be removed. And I can't do that. Okay. So unless I were to change the content, and I'm not going to be able to do that because I don't believe in catering to the normie sphere. I think catering to the normie sphere is the problem. And I've made that case at great length on this podcast over the last 3 years. If we did not have the information gatekeepers constantly catering to the normie sphere, moving at the speed of the television and telling us that they were doing so in order to wake up the normies, which they are thoroughly incapable of doing, as we have seen. But anyhow, Barely says, happy to support your work if you go full paywall. Thank you, Barely. I don't know that I will do that, but I'm just saying, for 5 years, I have given away every bit of content I have ever created for free within mere days of that content being created, if it was ever blockaded in the first place behind a paywall. Okay. The way it's been 4 years is that within a week, everything I have produced has come out for free to the general public. All right. So I do not feel any compunction whatsoever about eventually changing models and moving behind that. You know, if it's going to be, if my work is going to exist in some small corner of the internet and cater to a niche market, there's no point in also just leaving it free for people who are happy to consume the slop of the normie sphere. I don't have any sympathy for that any longer. Anyhow, let us march forward. We're actually going to hear from, for a different perspective, a former Bill and Hillary Clinton advisor. This was just shocking. And this was actually, this post on X, formerly Twitter, was shared by Real Clear Politics as like one of the day's articles, which I found sort of shocking. This is Mark Penn, as I said, former Clinton advisor. Get a grip, Wall Street. The tariff strategy is a risky but determined and certainly bold effort to undo the damage done to the manufacturing sectors of the American economy by unfair trade practices, especially from China. It is a reset of the global economic framework. Whether it works or not, I can't say, but the results will be for everyone to see. And the president, who has been successful with some unorthodox strategies in the past, knows his presidency and the success of his party are at stake here. But the markets need to do the math. We only import 11% of our economy, and a 20% tariff on half of all imports is only about 1% added costs, most of which goes to reduce the deficit. Less than a fraction of the impact of sales taxes in virtually any state, and these tariffs are often on selected components rather than the finished goods. Yes, certain manufacturing industries are affected more than others, but then they can search for substitutes and retool. And some brands can now boost their sales if they are made in America. And after all, that's the whole point. Wall Street needs to get a grip here. We've been through real disasters like the pandemic and the 2008 and 2009 crisis. If every state increased their sales tax 1%, the economy would not collapse. We even survived Biden's 20% inflation, a shock of far greater magnitude. America, remember, has the most adaptable, resilient, and innovative economy in the world. Should we be worried? Should we be pulling our hair out? Should Wall Street be? Wall Street is the American representative of the British Crown in the city of London. This is global banking as it is housed in America. Just like Washington, D.C. is the equivalent in terms of being the world's capital for the American military and what runs the American government. We are the labor state. We are the military state. We are the financial state of the global regime, directed from Wall Street, directed from Washington, D.C., and then to some extent directed from Hollywood, directed from Silicon Valley. Is it the American economy falling apart? Let us go just briefly and hit this article. We've heard a bit about the role of bonds here. And we'll just go through a bit of this. This is also from the Financial Times. And remember, again, these are the mouthpieces of the global regime. And Bill Ackman, despite his Trump support, however tepid, for 5 whole months leading up to a fake election, 4.5 months leading up to a fake election, is part of the global regime. So the Financial Times, bond investors bet that tariffs will inflict deep damage. In an early interview as U.S. Treasury Secretary back in February, Scott Bessent made it clear that bond yields, rather than stock prices, were the financial market metrics that he and President Trump cared about most. While he didn't elaborate why, it's not hard to guess. U.S. bond yields set the price for new mortgages. They determine the price and availability of finance for most U.S. company borrowing. And perhaps most importantly to Trump, bond markets hold the purse strings to government. Since the interview, U.S. stocks have bombed, down 13% by mid-morning on Friday. Equity markets hate uncertainty, and there has been no shortage of that since Donald Trump's return to the White House. Tariff flip-flopping, public sector job cuts, and upheaval over government policy, and a broader assault on multilateralism have cast a dark shadow over the economic outlook. But bond prices have risen, meaning that yields have dropped. In the context of weaker global bond markets, this is impressive. British, French, and German 10-year government bond yields have risen over the same period. American exceptionalism lives on in their bond market, if no longer across their newly sagging equity indices. So basically, the measures that Bessent and Trump care about, separate from the measures that these mouthpieces of the global regime care about, and they are quite upset about this. Furthermore, this exceptionalism has occurred despite higher inflation expectations and an increasingly worrying debt trajectory, the traditional boogeyman of bond markets. Since Bessent's interview, both private sector economists and markets alike have revised higher their forecasts for U.S. inflation. Oh, so the people who manipulate the value of currency are going to inflate that currency, which is them changing the value of the currency whenever they want, as they always have? Wow.
Wow. Wowie, wow, wow, wow.
Wow. Wowie, wow, wow, wow. Amazing. Moreover, there has been much market chatter over a so-called Mar-a-Lago Accord involving what would effectively be a coercive exchange of treasury bonds upon America's allies. The idea was discussed in a report written by Stephen Miron before he became chair of Trump's Council of Economic Advisors. When asked about the idea last week, Miron would only say that Trump's focus was on tariffs. We don't know how much of the $3.8 trillion of U.S. Treasury holdings marked as foreign official holdings are owned by its allies, but talk of a debt exchange is unlikely to encourage them to add more. And it continues. We will see what happens. But again, the project is sovereign nationalism. America first, understanding the emergence of a multipolar world order, the end of the one world, international, liberal, rules-based order. That's it. That's the goal. These people can't imagine that that's the goal, and they can't imagine the emergence of any other system other than the ones they've devoted their entire lives to. That's natural, because they've devoted their entire lives to it. They have not woken up. They have not thought, oh, damn. So we were wrong about everything? All that bullshit we convinced ourselves to believe while we were getting rich and famous and increasing our social status wasn't true? Darn. They haven't reached that moment yet. Because they haven't reached that moment, they can't imagine any other system. And this is true no matter what walk of life you find yourself in. You can talk to attorneys who still think that our legal system, as it's always been, will be how it always remains, that the old paradigms will persist, that court precedent will never be overturned, that the Constitution is the collection of statutes and regulations and court precedent layered on top of the 14th Amendment, itself unratified. All of that is just the Constitution. So what are you going to do? Get rid of the Constitution? No. We're going to get rid of everything that's not the Constitution. And then we might get rid of the Constitution. I don't think we'll have to do that, but we might. And if we do, then so be it. Okay? But that's not the point. That's not the goal. The goal is to get rid of everything that's not the Constitution, because everything that's not the Constitution has been a usurpation of that Constitution, a violation of the system of rules. It's not itself the system of rules. And that stuff has to be removed. And the inability to imagine what comes after that is not itself a justification to maintain the system of rules that is already the usurpation. Okay? You don't keep the usurpation in place just because you think it's going to be hard to make the adjustment to the system that was actually the one that people agreed to the extent that people agreed to any of it. And I think the argument's pretty conclusive that no one has agreed to any of it. Lysander Spooner makes the argument as well as it can be made, including that our voting is no consent whatsoever to the system. And with a secret ballot, you can't actually prove that anyone has consented to the system. Not a single individual can be legally proven to have consented to the system. So how then can we say that en masse, we all consent to the system? No, we don't. Let us continue. This clip made its rounds pretty widely over the weekend. This is economic advisor Kevin Hassett. Hold for processing. Here we are.
I got a report from the USTR last night that more than 50 countries have reached out to the president to begin a negotiation. But they're doing that because they understand that they bear a lot of the tariff. And so I don't think that you're going to see a big effect on the consumer in the U.S. because I do think that the reason why we have a persistent long-run trade deficit is these people have very inelastic supply. They've been dumping goods into the country in order to create jobs, say, in China. I got a report from the USTR last night.
Negotiations are beginning. Countries are starting to waive their tariffs. Now, waiving the tariffs, Trump has said, will not make our tariffs go away. At least not necessarily. It's certainly leverage for negotiations. But the purpose is not just to change the rules. The purpose is to break down the system. And we'll get back into that with Ursula von der Leyen in just a few minutes. Trump addressed the China issue on Air Force One. Let me just make sure I'm pulling the right clip. First one first. Here we are.
Chinese foreign back up on this. Sure. The Chinese foreign ministry said that the market has spoken when asked about the tariffs. What do you make of that? The market has spoken when they look at the fact that we have $1 billion trade deficit. When you look at the trade deficit that we have with certain countries, way over $1 billion per country. But with China, it's $1 trillion. And we have to solve our trade deficit with China. We have $1 trillion trade deficit with China. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year we lose with China. And unless we solve that problem, I'm not going to make a deal. Now, I'm willing to deal with China, but they have to solve their surplus. We have a tremendous deficit problem with China. They have a surplus of at least $1 trillion a year. I think it's like $1.1 trillion. And I want that solved. And no other president's taken it on. I had to take it on the last time. And then we had a rigged election. No other president's taken it on. And so China is, they say the market's spoken. China is right now taking a big hit because everyone knows we're right. They have to pay tariffs because otherwise we have a surplus and they have a surplus with us that is not sustainable.
Mr. President.
And we're talking about $1 trillion. You know that, right? We're not going to lose $1 trillion for the privilege of buying pencils from China.
So we're not going to lose $1 trillion for the privilege of buying pencils from China. Now, naturally, Donald Trump has been fact-checked on the claim that we have $1 trillion trade deficit with China. And it is supposedly roughly a quarter of that, like 260 billion-ish. So what does he mean? What could he be talking about? This is going to be one of those things that I know some people are not going to get on board with, and I understand it. Okay. Good twin, evil twin. If you look at what China is, good twin, evil twin style, China is just the regime faction as it exists in China. Okay. When Trump is saying bad things about China, he is referring to the evil twin faction in China. He's not referring to the Chinese people. He's not referring to Lao Baixing. And I don't believe he's actually referring to Xi Jinping either, who he says is a brilliant man and he gets along well with, and they had a trade deal worked out. All of the decoupling, of course, is part of that plan. It's been 5 years in the making. So when Trump says China, is he talking about the global regime in China? And I believe that the answer to that is unequivocally yes. Okay. And so if he is using China as an avatar of the global regime to explain the problem of trade deficits, and he's saying that it is $1 trillion, then what is it he means? Is it beyond China? And I would suggest that, yes, it is well beyond China. The machine says that our 2024 trade deficit was $1.2 trillion. Trump just said, I think it's $1 trillion. I think it's a little more than $1 trillion. And he reiterated that. And he said, you guys know it, right? You understand that, don't you? So, of course, they're going to go through the cycle of fact checking. They're going to spread it around. Trump lies about $1 trillion trade deficit. Did he lie? What is he saying? Oh, so the trade deficit is $1 trillion, $1.2 trillion with the entire world. It's not just China. And China's is a quarter of that, or whatever the math comes out to, if it's $1.2 trillion to 260 billion, assuming those numbers, slightly less than a quarter. Okay. I know that people care about accuracy. Is he talking about the global evil twin and the U.S. trade deficit caused by the top-down centralized control system operated by the global regime for the benefit of that global regime and the implementation of the one world liberal international rules-based order? I would suggest that's what he's talking about. And these issues become immediately understandable when looking at them through the good twin, evil twin lens, rather than assuming that the label China means everything that happens in that country and nowhere else. Okay? The Chinese economic system was put in place by the same Europeans and the same regime Americans who brought Mao to power and empowered China through connecting our industry, shipping out our jobs, shipping out our manufacturing, and bringing cheap goods into America. That's who his opponent is. That's who his opponent's always been. And the people who are also opposing that in China then are clearly not our enemies. They're fighting our enemies. And they're fighting our enemies in their country, as we need them to do, just like we need Russia to fight the global regime in Russia and Brazil to fight the global regime in Brazil. All the countries around the world, the good twin must fight the evil twin in that country for the emergence of the multipolar world order. And it's going to be individual, but the collective works not because it's been collectivized, but because the effort is against the same enemy. And it doesn't matter where the chips are taken away, where the dents are made in that enemy's armor. Doesn't matter if the big dent comes from the United States and a very small dent comes from Malaysia, formerly Burma. The dents come wherever they come. And eventually the armor is pierced and the enemy is defeated. And that's what's happening in my view. And if you don't want to get on board with that, if it's too much, oh no, he's just talking about China and he's just lying about China. Or you're one of the Trump is absolutely always literally right people, except when he's literally just making an allusion to something else or speaking in code. I don't know. I'm not I must not be the quality of decoder to be able to figure out exactly what he's saying at all times. Is he literally correct here about $1 trillion trade deficit to China? Well, it's possible that the statistics are wrong and that it's $1 trillion effectively, Or it's possible that he's just talking about the global evil twin that operates the top-down centralized control over the world economy, and that our $1.2 trillion trade deficit worldwide is being explained in the avatar of China. And it's funny because the trade war, insofar as it is a real trade war, is being waged in consort with China. Let us continue with more Trump on Air Force One. And these Air Force One sessions are just really, they've been really straightforward and very interesting. Where are we here? Trump making deals. Where's my clip? Where's my making deals clip? There we are.
And you talked to a lot of leaders this weekend. Can you tell us, sir, were there any deals made?
I spoke to a lot of leaders, European, Asian, from all over the world. They're dying to make a deal. But I said, we're not going to have deficits with your country. We're not going to do that, because to me a deficit is a loss. We're going to have surpluses, or we're at worst going to be breaking even. But China would be the worst in the group, because the deficit is so big and it's not sustainable. And you know, I was elected on this. This was one of the biggest reasons I got elected, was exactly because of this. And we're going to put tariffs on. We've already put them on. It's not a question of we will. We're going to put them on. And those tariffs next year will make us $1 trillion. In addition to the $1 trillion, thousands of companies are going to relocate back into the United States. In North Carolina, already furniture people are starting to move back in Detroit and Michigan, which I won because of what I said, what I'm telling you. Car companies are starting to open up. In Indiana, a big one is under construction, as an example, Honda. But they're moving in like nobody has ever seen this before. So it's unsustainable for us to allow China to have surpluses of $1 trillion. We will be taking in over $1 trillion over the next short period of time with the tariffs that I've already instituted. They're already in place. Now, what's going to happen with the market, I can't tell you, but I can tell you our country has gotten a lot stronger. And eventually, it'll be a country like no other. It'll be the most dominant country economically in the world,
Mr. President,
which is what it should be.
Is there a Trump put, though? Is there a
Trump had this to say over on Truth Social today. Oh, wait, I should share that. Countries from all over the world are talking to us. Tough but fair parameters are being set. Spoke to the Japanese prime minister this morning. He is sending a top team to negotiate. They have treated the U.S. very poorly on trade. They don't take our cars, but we take millions of theirs. Likewise, agriculture and many other quote unquote things. It all has to change, but especially with China. And he brings it back to China. And so we will continue to his China post from this morning. This was the big one. Yesterday, China issued retaliatory tariffs of 34% on top of their already record-setting tariffs, non-monetary tariffs, illegal subsidization of companies, and massive long-term currency manipulation. Despite my warning that any country that retaliates against the United States by issuing additional tariffs above and beyond their already existing long-term tariff abuse of our nation will be immediately met with new and substantially higher tariffs over and above those initially set. Therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8th, 2025, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries which have also requested meetings will be taking place immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So tough talk on China, or China as the avatar of the global regime. Now, John pointed this out to me over the weekend, Patel Patriot, John Harold. He said, isn't it interesting that Trump is going to trade war with China and with Xi Jinping, while at the same time saying that Xi Jinping has to approve of any sale of TikTok? How could it be that those two things are happening while Donald Trump wants this TikTok sale? Doesn't make sense. He would be operating in this tariff leverage construct and ignoring another massive chunk of leverage on the Chinese side of the equation. We talked the other day that the decoupling from China has been in process for 5 years. They have planned this out for such a long time, and it's been operative for such a long time, and they remained in touch. Donald Trump used to say that Xi and these other world leaders thought that he was playing an April Fool's trick on them every day. He's playing a trick on us by having the fake and illegitimate president Joe Biden in place. He's not playing a trick on them. He was playing a trick on those people who believe whatever the television says and are happy to go along with the hoodwinking and never resist it. And he tricked them awfully well. But the decoupling has been going on the whole time. So if he puts on tariffs and China responds and he raises and China raises, and eventually the whole system, the whole global trade system collapses, the centralized system of control collapses and has to then be reset. Well, that's the plan. Is that a trade war? No, it's a collaboration. Let us continue.
And I said, somebody said, well, what would you do? What can you do? So,
by the way, for those listening on audio who aren't seeing this, this is a substantially older clip of Trump. This might have even been before he was president, but this is Trump talking tough about China.
So easy. I drop a 25% tax on China. And
earmuffs, by the way.
And, you know, I said to somebody that it's really the messenger. The messenger is important. I could have one man say, we're going to tax you 25%. And I could say another, listen, you motherfuckers, we're going to tax you 25%.
And of course, it gives the thug life meme and drops the little glasses. And is that a blunt? Is that a spliff? It's a technical term. It's not a cigarette. Into his mouth. But yeah, this is Trump's position the entire time. And the messenger actually does matter. We are now seeing that the messenger matters. Let's go back to another Trump Truth Social post here. This is from this morning as well. Countries from all over the world are talking to, oh no, that's the one I already did. Okay, that for some reason that was in my lineup twice. We can skip that. We're going to skip right over that. Now, it was announced this morning that Georgia Maloney, or no, sorry, it was announced yesterday, I guess. This article is from Reuters yesterday. I didn't see it until this morning. Whoopsie. Italy's Maloney pledges to support businesses hurt by Trump's tariffs. And she is additionally planning to meet Trump. Italian media, it says at the end of this article, reported on Sunday that Maloney could meet Trump in Washington in the week of April 14th for talks. That's next week. She attended his inauguration in January, but this would be her first visit since then. Now, the idea would be that Maloney, as a friendly ambassador of the EU nations, would come to represent the interests of all the EU nations in the tariff negotiations with Donald Trump. That is what's being sold. Or it could be, and this is an and Eva Vlardingerbrook, I think is her name, insight that has made the rounds over the past couple of days following this announcement. It could be that Giorgia Meloni is negotiating on behalf of Italy in an Italy first kind of manner. And then if the EU countries begin forming their own bilateral relationships with the Trump administration, what happens to the EU? Well, the EU collapses, as we've talked about for many years now. The collapse of the EU, the breaking apart of the EU, has been one of those things that seems awfully inevitable with the Ukraine stuff and with the rest of it. And you got to wonder if that signals bigger fragmentations, including here in the United States. I don't know what the future of that's going to be, but we shall see. Let us continue. Let's review the Ursula von der Leyen clips from last week. And I have a shortened and condensed version of what we went through on Friday. But I actually do think that this is so telling of the position of the European Commission and of the regime's interests in Europe that I think it's worth revisiting.
President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow to the world economy. I deeply regret this choice. Let's be clear-eyed about the immense consequences. The global economy will massively suffer. Uncertainty will spiral and trigger the rise of further protectionism. The consequences will be dire for millions of people around the globe, also for the most vulnerable countries, which are now subject to some of the highest US tariffs, the opposite of what we wanted to achieve. The tariffs will also hurt consumers around the world. It will be felt immediately. Millions of citizens will face higher grocery bills, medication will cost more, as well as transportation. Inflation will go up, and this is hurting in particular the most vulnerable citizens. All businesses, big and small, will suffer from day one. From greater uncertainty, to the disruption of supply chains, to burdensome bureaucracy, the costs of doing business with the United States will drastically increase. And what is more, there seems to be no order in the disorder, no clear path to the complexity and chaos that is being created as all US trading partners are hit.
No order in the disorder. And they want the rules-based order. They want rules on how the U.S. is allowed to operate. They are like kindergartners. Call these people child brains and standard issue villagers. The child brains thing. They want rules. They want a top-down enforcement mechanism. And the enforcement mechanism is being taken away. And everybody just needs to fend for themselves. And they're not equipped for that. Hence the freak out. Let's continue. There are two more short clips from her speech last week. To the rules again. Oh, come on. There we are. There we are.
I agree with President Trump that others are taking unfair advantage of the current rules. And I'm ready to support any efforts to make the global trading system fit for the realities of the global economy. But I also want to be clear. Reaching for tariffs as your first and last tool will not fix it. This is why from the outset, we have always been ready to negotiate with the United States to remove the remaining barriers to transatlantic trade.
So the system of rules, she acknowledges that the rules were broken, but we don't want to get rid of the system of rules. We want to renegotiate so that we can alter the rules and put a new system into place that works better. Well, here's the thing. If the rules were broken by their side, then the rules, and no one enforced them, then the rules don't apply to their side. It's the same thing as the two-tiered system of justice in the United States and the abomination our legal system has become. If the rules are only applied to one side for the benefit of the other side, and it doesn't go the opposite way, that's not a system of rules. That's just abuse from power. And if they're not in power anymore and the abused do not want to be abused anymore, well, then the system has to go. The rules, that there is a system of rules in place that governs the behavior of only one side and is enforced on only one side. That's the problem. That's the problem that needs solving. And I just, again, thought that this particular part was so funny because of the language that she uses, but also because the signal that she's putting out.
I know that many of you feel let down by our oldest ally. Yes, we must brace for the impact that this will inevitably have. Europe has everything it needs to make it through the storm. We are in this together. If you take on one of us, you take on all of us. So we will stand together and stand up for each other. Our unity is our strength.
Where we go one, we go all. We're going to make it through the storm. Unity is our strength. Unity, begging people to be united, is a sign of weakness. It is always only that. It's nice to be unified around the proper goals and proper values. This is what I've been saying since the Ron DeSantis op, when we were always told we had to unify with them. We can't go after the Ron DeSantis people because that's going to disrupt our unity. Well, we're already not unified with them, and they're not interested in unifying around the proper set of values. So we plant our flag, and whoever wants to rally around the flag is welcome. We can be welcoming, but we're not going to force unity, because forcing unity is a compromise, and you don't compromise with evil people. And that's what we have been led to do in this country for so long. And people in various movements try to lead everybody toward unity and claim, oh, we're all family here. We've got to be together. We've got to be together. Really? We all have to be together? Is it for your good or all of our good? Oh, it's for your good. You're the one always calling for unity. I see. And just portraying the idea that a disparate collection of people are all actually a family because we sort of agree on a few things, well, that's cult behavior. I would assume that the proper response, wherever pleas for the unity and the rest of it are involved, is, I was going to say go F yourself, but I'm trying to keep it kid friendly, having already had 2 examples of the need for earmuffs in this here podcast already. I'm trying to be nice, trying to be polite. It's hard. So hard. Dan Wright says, check your Truth Social DMs regarding adversity at the protest. Team Smooth says, actual unity can't be forced. And I do agree. Dan Wright's post was here, by the way. This is what he's referencing. A post by David Harris Jr. Soros-funded NGOs were instructed not to pay Black protesters. Black influencers went online to warn Blacks not to attend. The DC area is almost 50% Black, and yet very few Black faces were seen at the anti-Tesla and Musk protests yesterday. Why don't Democrats want Blacks at these protests? Well, it's a good question. I don't know the answer. One note on that Soros thing, and clearly I'm no fan of Soros, but talking about Soros, his role in financing color revolutions, the Soros organization being frozen out of countries like Myanmar. I want George and Alex Soros as far away from world politics. They're sponsors of the crisis group as well. Don't want them to have anything to do with anything. That said, calling everything Soros is actually probably at the point of being A, retarded, and B, destructive. George Soros is like an ancient shell of what he used to be, and that role is being moved elsewhere. And if we keep focusing on the Soros of it all, we are probably missing the ball, and we shouldn't be doing that just to score easy Soros points. I mean, Tucker Carlson, the New York Post, like every normie talks about George Soros, okay? Like it's past its expiration date. It's not to say we need to move on, but we do need to move forward. Soros funded rings of "It's the Jews," says Barely. Yeah. I mean, well, that's definitely part of it, but you got to understand it past there. Anyhow, let's get back to the woman Sergei Lavrov, foreign minister of Russia, calls Führer Ursula. I wonder if I can still find this clip, actually. Let me just see if I can find the beautiful Ursula clip from Lavrov. I don't think I ever played it on the podcast. I have found it. Here we are. I knew I would have it. Here it is. Let us enjoy Sergei Lavrov and his humor.
Ursula is mobilizing everybody, everybody to remilitarize Europe.
Führer Ursula is leading Europe to remilitarize. How powerful. I wonder why he's calling her Führer. It's impossible to know. She responded to this is the, hold on, let me pull up this article. Here we are. From Euro News, von der Leyen offers Trump 0 for 0 tariffs on all industrial goods. Let's make a deal, she's basically saying. Europe is always ready for a good deal, she says, as trade tensions with the United States reach an all-time high. The European Commission has offered the United States a deal to remove tariffs on all industrial goods as part of the trade negotiations. Ursula von der Leyen has said, while stressing her intention to retaliate against Donald Trump's policies should talks fail. Trump has announced a 20% across-the-board tariffs on imports from the European Union, set to take effect on 9 April. Steel, aluminum, and cars are subject to a separate 25% rate. In total, over 380 billion euros in EU-made products will be affected. Pharmaceuticals, copper, lumber, semiconductors, and energy have been exempted. And the article apparently disappears into its own frame. 0 for 0. Hey, Ursula, no deal. The whole system must go. It's not just about getting a slightly better deal on Land Rovers. That's not the point of this. That's not the point at all. And yet these people still act like it must be the point. He can't possibly be thinking about removing the top-down control, centralized control over the world economy. He can't possibly be doing that. Let's just give him a better deal. We're saying it's 0 for 0. You're not going to get a better deal than that. Actually, we will. It's called no more global regime control. That's the deal. Get on board with that. Can't those European countries survive without access to the American consumer? The answer is no, obviously. What's going to happen to Mercedes-Benz and to Land Rover and to all of these European car manufacturers, et cetera, if they don't have access to the American marketplace? Are they going to pass the cost on to consumers? If they do, should American people broadly be upset about that? Having to pay more for a Land Rover, having to pay more for a Mercedes-Benz. Now, the goal is not the redistribution of wealth. The goal is to fix an obviously broken system that advantages countries around the world that aren't us, and people at the top rung of the economic ladder. For 4 years, maybe all 5 years that I've been doing this show, we have talked countless times about the fact that people took the hit in 2020, but that the thing was coming for everyone. It's not going to fail to touch anyone. Everyone's lives will be affected as the thing works its way through society. And some people will keep themselves behind, be held back. They will be lost forever, but everyone else is going to be affected by this in some way. Is it in a sense of, I don't know, fairness or justice or evenness? Not that the world comes equipped with one of those, but in terms of us doling out our sympathy, having been the people who were probably most negatively affected in that first round. And again, I understand that there are people affected worse than I was, for certain, people who started in a position worse than I started. But I'm still climbing out of what happened in 2020, you know? So it is that way. Should people who lost their careers and their reputations and their friend groups and their incomes and their savings and their houses, people who fell into addiction, domestic abuse, should those people be upset upon hearing that someone might have to pay $10,000 more to buy a Land Rover that costs more than that person who was affected in 2020 makes in an entire year? That's an awfully hard argument to sell to anybody. But that's where we are. Let me pause for a moment. We'll do one of these here Rumble ads. We have a couple today. Supports the show, supports Rumble. And I have no problem giving my support to Rumble because Rumble has made it possible for all of these many years, but especially the last, 6 months or 8 months that I've been doing a live stream rather than the recorded podcast, to continue to speak to people. And one of the ways that they're able to fund their ventures and fund the continued advancements of their website and the viewer experience, et cetera, is with their own proprietary coffee. They have 1775 coffee, and an interesting date. It's not 1776, 1775. The coming together of the Continental Army, the beginning of that process. Single origin, small farm, hand-picked, specialty grade coffee. That stands for quality, free speech, and calling out BS when it matters. Forget stale, mass-produced beans. Roasted just enough to hide the flaws. Dark roast hits like a Trump tariff. Medium roast keeps it bold without the bitterness. And Vitality Mushroom Blend, real energy and lasting focus, no synthetic garbage. For K-Cup pods, whole bean, or fresh ground coffee, go to 1775coffee.com. Use code STUDIO for 15% off and start your morning with coffee that stands for something. And oh yeah, every dollar spent enters you to win a Cybertruck and $30,000 in cash. Now, I don't know if you're going to win that. Kind of think that chances are you're not. Just playing the odds. Just playing the odds. But do it for the coffee. If you're doing it for the Tesla and the $30,000 in cash, well, you are making bad bets. We don't want to make bad bets, but we do want to buy good coffee. So there it is, 1775coffee.com, promo code STUDIO. And let us get back to our regularly scheduled programming. So Ursula is now ready to negotiate. Here she is, assuming I have properly labeled this.
And ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners, because Europe is always ready for a good deal. So we keep it on the table. But we are also prepared to respond through countermeasures and defend our interests.
Oh, yeah. Very, very scary. So they've offered that deal to other countries, but not to ours. Well, what is this? We had to apply tariffs just to get you to give us the deal that you've given to these other countries. So we had a different price. That's messed up. Trump, back to Trump on Truth Social. He posted this morning, this from Fox Business. Quote, the opportunity is to rebuild the global trading system in a way that works for the United States, which we didn't have.
What the opportunity is to rebuild the global trading system in a way that works for the United States, which we didn't have. I think there's also the opportunity on globalism to reverse it. EJ was talking about China. You know, they're still getting loans from the World Bank. I couldn't stop it. They're still getting debt restructurings. When they make a bad loan abroad, they get all their money back. And so the whole system is set up in a way that favors them and not the U.S. So this is a starting point.
And that sounds a whole lot like the clip we went through with Marco just last week.
Consumer market in the world, and yet the only thing we export is services. And we need to stop that. We need to get back to a time where we're a country that can make things, and to do that we have to reset the global order of trade.
And the other part of my question.
Well, the worst thing is to leave it the way it is forever. I mean, this just can't continue. We can't continue to be a country that doesn't make things. We have to be able to make things to provide jobs for Americans. That's it. It's that simple. China is an example. I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, they don't consume anything. All they do is export and flood and distort markets, in addition to all the tariffs and barriers they put in place. So the president rightly has concluded that the current status of global trade is bad for America and good for a bunch of other people, and he's going to reset it, and he's absolutely right to do.
He's resetting global trade. It's not just about getting a good deal for the U.S. It is about resetting global trade. And while we're talking about resetting the global economy, that can't be done fully, in my view, until we are able to move past the global regime's fiat dollar or fiat currency, currently branded as the US dollar. And some interesting posts this weekend from a man named David Bailey, who if I'm not mistaken, runs Bitcoin Magazine. One of you Bitcoiners in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong about that. I think that's what it is, if memory serves. He's responding to a post by an account called Spartacus Hodl. Were we not supposed to find out the results of the U.S. government's audit on Bitcoin holdings yesterday? So this post is from Sunday. He's talking, so yesterday would be Saturday, April 5th. Bailey responds, the White House was supposed to get the results. Assuming they got them, I guess we'll hear something soon. Then he updated saying the White House should get the results on Monday. He was asked, are they going to publish the addresses or just the results of what they found? And the thread went on. Bailey had one more interesting comment in it that I want to pull up. He said, if they're with a custodian, there's really no way to publish the address. Another response from an account that goes by Sani. For security reasons, he asks, we just need them to match the approximately 200,000. Then we know we got the right address and the Biden administration didn't sell anything in secret. Bailey responds, we need to know that they control the keys. If it's just one address of 100,000 controlled by a custodian, you really can't tell anything about the balance as discussed earlier. They just become part of the custodian's internal ledger. And what they're referring to here was part of Trump's executive order dated March 6th of this year. Establishment of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and United States Digital Asset Stockpile. And if we skip down, here we are. Within 30 days of this order, each agency shall review its authorities to transfer any stockpile assets held by it to the United States Digital Asset Stockpile and shall submit a report reflecting the result of that review to the Secretary of the Treasury. The Secretary of the Treasury shall determine strategies for responsible stewardship of the United States Digital Asset Stockpile in accordance with applicable law. So they're meant to review the actual the amount that they are holding, and I am very interested to finding out how much that is exactly. And of course, there are theories going around about the United States potentially holding much more than we've ever been led to believe, and or maybe being responsible for the creation of Bitcoin, and therefore some part of the military or some part of intelligence or whatever it is being quote unquote Satoshi Nakamoto and having access to that whole part of the held back Bitcoin. All of these things are super interesting to me. I don't know what the answers are. My expertise is certainly not in this area. So other people, smarter people than I on these subjects will have to figure all of that out. But it is interesting just in a timeline sense that the 30 days would coincide so directly with this period of market volatility and a global trade, global market adjustment to that volatility. All right, so I'm of two minds here. I'm trying to determine whether we should wrap the show up just with that focus on economics today or go a little bit further, because I had some stuff on Friday that I wanted to get into. Let's go ahead and just talk elections for just a few minutes, and then we will begin to wrap up for the day. This is from Friday in the Gateway Pundit. North Carolina Supreme Court race in turmoil. Democrats' 700-vote victory now in jeopardy as 65,000 voters ordered to prove eligibility or be removed from the count. And, you know, I am obsessed with the ultimate understanding by the American people that our elections are fake, they are rigged, they are stolen. The people pretending to represent us are, in my view, committing treason by doing so. That I cannot buy the argument that they are ignorant about the status of our election system. They are elected as and then become the beneficiaries of the rigged election system. What was hailed by Democrats as a narrow 734 vote victory for Allison Riggs in the 2024 North Carolina Supreme Court race is now spiraling into electoral chaos, as a court ruling has cast doubt over tens of thousands of ballots that could flip the outcome in favor of conservative challenger Judge Jefferson Griffin. All right. I want to pull up the 2024 election results statewide for North Carolina, because I think that North Carolina is one of those that you can point to immediately and understand that things were very, very wrong. And similar to the result we had in Wisconsin last week, where two results were delivered by ostensibly the same voters, indicating entirely divergent viewpoints, which is impossible. North Carolina is a wonderful example of that. Here are the results for the presidential race. Donald Trump defeated Kamala by a very large margin here That's 183,000 votes. And then in the governor's race, the Democrat Josh Stein defeated Mark Robinson, who made himself a national figure and is a very powerfully and well-spoken individual, black man. But then he was attacked because he was like supporting Hitler or something. And he lost by 800,000 votes. So we are supposed to believe that nearly 1 million voters who voted for Donald Trump as president, there's a 1 million vote gap, I should say, between voting for Donald Trump as president and voting for Josh Stein, the Democrat, as governor. That does not make sense. That does not make any sense. 650,000 plus Trump voters chose not to vote for Mark Robinson. And many of them instead voted for Josh Stein, we are told. Not possible. So back to North Carolina on this Supreme Court race. And let's continue. In a stunning decision filed Thursday, the North Carolina Court of Appeals ruled that approximately 65,000 ballots cast by voters with incomplete registration information, missing photo identification, or submitted by individuals who have never lived in North Carolina may be invalid under state and federal election law. The 2-1 decision was authored by Judges John Tyson and Fred Gore, both registered Republicans. Judge Tobias Hampson, a Democrat, dissented from the majority opinion. The court ordered election officials across the state's 100 counties to notify affected voters, giving them 15 business days to prove they are legally eligible to vote, or their ballots could be tossed, handing conservatives a chance to reclaim a critical seat on the state's highest court. The race went to a recount since the vote difference was fewer than 10,000 votes, blah, blah, blah. We shall see how this all turns out in the end. And if they reverse that for those reasons, will we then see the legal challenges that lead this case up to, hopefully, the Supreme Court, if they have jurisdiction, if it can find standing there? I would assume that all these things will always be appealed and they will go as far as they can go. And I think that that's good. That's a good part of the process. We want to see races overturned for these exact reasons. We want to see the legal challenges play out so that we can get the rules down. The lines are drawn on the field. Also, in the area of election litigation, more efforts against Donald Trump's election integrity order. States sue to block Trump's election order, saying it violates the Constitution. And so this is from Thursday last week. Democrat officials in 19 states filed a lawsuit Thursday against President Donald Trump's attempt to reshape elections across the U.S., calling it an unconstitutional invasion of states' clear authority to run their own elections. The lawsuit is the fourth against the executive order issued just a week ago. It seeks to block key aspects of it, including new requirements that people provide documentary proof of citizenship when registering to vote, and a demand that all mail ballots be received by Election Day. The president has no power to do any of this, the state attorneys general wrote in the court documents. The elections EO is unconstitutional, anti-democratic, and un-American. And I think that we should, let me see how we're doing on time. I think we can still fit in a quick run through of some of the arguments made by these state attorneys general. But let's get to some of these comments here. We are a democracy, not a monarchy, and this executive order is an authoritarian power grab, said New York Attorney General Letitia Peekaboo James, who has already gone after Donald Trump in in New York and gone after Trump directly. I believe that was the real estate fraud. Rhode Island's Attorney General Peter Naranjo said the Trump administration is requiring states to either comply with an unconstitutional order or lose congressionally approved funding, something he said the president has no authority to do. Guess we'll find out. In one fell swoop, this president is attempting to undermine elections and sidestep the Congress, and we're not going to stand for it. So the issue here is, if Congress appropriates money to be spent and sent to the states, can the president halt that spending if those states are violating federal law directly related to the issue for which they are meant to be funded? Would love to find out. Let's get the court decision. Can't imagine that that would be something the founders would have intended. California Attorney General Rob Bonta said Trump's executive order was an attempt to impose sweeping voting restrictions across the country and disenfranchise voters. Now, let us hear from the one and only Peekaboo James. Here we are.
It's that stone of hope that gives me power. That's that
Power.
stone of hope and the belief in each and every one of you to let you know that I'm not going to allow my ancestors, all of those who died for me to be in this position, I am not going to disgrace them and disappoint them. I am going to use the law both as a sword and as a shield and challenge Donald Trump. And each and every time he issues an illegal executive order, I am going to stand up to him because he represents to me sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity.
Wow. That's really something. A sword. Power. These people are retarded. Good luck. You sound very tough, Peekaboo. I'm sure things will totally work out for you. Let's go through just the introduction to this case and let's see what arguments are being made here. This is the complaint. The president's constitutional role in elections is limited to competing in them and enforcing election laws enacted by Congress. Nonetheless, on March 25th, 2025, defendant President Donald Trump issued Executive Order 14248 entitled Preserving and Protecting the Integrity of American Elections. This is the Elections EO, to transform how federal elections are conducted throughout the nation. The EO was to enforce the laws in place and to direct the Department of Justice, for instance, to make sure that the laws were enforced and that people would be prosecuted when they weren't following the laws. The United States Constitution is clear about the power to regulate elections. As the sovereigns closest to the people, the states have primary responsibility. As Madison explained at the Virginia Convention, it was found necessary to leave the regulation of federal elections in the first place to the state governments as being best acquainted with the situation of the people. And that's especially interesting because, as I mentioned last week or the week before, H.R. 1 from the fake and illegitimate Congress in the first half of the fake and illegitimate president's term, H.R. 1 was an amendment, a measure to federalize elections and make sure that the elections are controlled centrally from the federal government. The same communists in 2020 were arguing during the negotiations for the COVID relief packages in favor of universal ballot harvesting and universal mail-in balloting for everyone on the voter registries all around the country, dictated from the federal level. And now that's a problem. If they want to put this precedent in place, by all means, let's get the ruling that the federal government has no role in elections. Under the Elections Clause, Congress may preempt state elections law for federal contests, but nowhere does the Constitution provide the president or the executive branch with any independent power to modify the state's procedures for conducting federal elections. The elections EO usurps the state's constitutional power and seeks to amend election law by fiat. In large measure, the unconstitutional elections EO targets the Election Assistance Commission, referred to in the suit as the Commission, an independent bipartisan agency that Congress established under its constitutional elections authority. To protect our elections, Congress required the Commission to operate independently. It also required the Commission to make its decisions under standards of bipartisanship, reasoned decision-making, and collaboration with the states, which actually administer the nation's elections. The elections EO seeks to eradicate all those safeguards, aiming to force the Commission to rubber stamp the president's policy preferences on, among other things, voter registration and voting systems. They're referring to his demand that they actually be verified as lawfully eligible American citizens. If not enjoined, the elections EO would impose onerous documentary proof of citizenship requirements for federal voter registration forms that would harm both plaintiff states and their citizens. Really? Proof of citizenship requirements on federal voter registration forms provide an onerous burden on the plaintiff states and the people of those states. This portion of the order directly impacts most plaintiff states because the National Voter Registration Act requires all states subject to its provisions, 44 out of 50, to make the federal mail registration form or its equivalent available to register voters for federal elections. Oh no. We'd have to get rid of that? Shucks. Terrible. The elections EO would also effectively preclude plaintiff states from administering vote-by-mail systems that permit voters to make their choices by election day, upending processes that accommodate more voters, decrease obstacles, and increase voter participation. While unclear, it may also prohibit voters in plaintiff states from curing minor technical problems with timely ballots after election day. The election EO relies on a fundamentally incorrect interpretation of federal election day statutes to support this command, which itself is an unconstitutional invasion of state and congressional election regulation. So now they're challenging the idea that election day is actually just election day, not the days after and not 6 weeks before. As for the mail element and the mail registrations, Seth Keshel had an interesting article about this last week, actually castigating Republicans and even MAGA supporters over mail-in voting, mail-in registration, all these things that they like to make the elections more convenient, that they themselves take advantage of. Now, it's funny that Scott Pressler pushes for all those things. We need to participate in these aspects of the election system, even though they introduce opportunities for fraud and cheating and malfeasance at every single level. People still should participate, according to Scott Pressler, and a lot of people do participate. And Seth Keshel was making the point that people want the benefits of these changes. They want the system to be righted, but they're not willing to inconvenience themselves in the push for the system to be righted. And if that's the case, then they can't very well expect the system to be righted. And I think he makes a valid point there. Vote on election day in person. Make sure the system works, or don't vote. I mean, I don't give a shit whether people vote or not. But this elections EO, back to the lawsuit, thus unconstitutionally treats plaintiff states as mere instruments of the president's policy agenda. Ridiculous. To implement the president's policies, the elections EO necessarily commandeers plaintiff states' election apparatus because states administer almost the entirety of the national election system. For instance, there is no federal voter registration database. Each state maintains its own registration system. The mandates of the elections EO, therefore, require state officials to participate in the verification of voter citizenship documentation, a purported requirement that is itself contrary to the NVRA. And you can see the distortion of the system in this, okay? The states dictate how elections are run. The states now, because of how elections have been changed, that there are now direct elections for senators, the quote unquote popular vote in each state. That wasn't how the Senate was designed. And that we are voting for president rather than just voting for our congressional representatives in our states who would then be the electors. So those distortions of the system have created more emphasis on federal elections that the federal government is supposed to be kept totally out of. So the stakes were increased and the control was not changed. That's the argument being made, even though these people wanted to entirely change the system. Likewise, Section 2D of the Elections EO commands the head of each state designated federal voter registration agency under the NVRA to immediately begin assessing citizenship prior to providing a federal voter registration form to enrollees of public assistance programs. This ambiguous provision potentially sweeps in a wide range of state and local offices serving low-income and disabled residents, obligating them to bear new administrative burdens. And so they're making a class distinction here and going toward unequal treatment, which is going to be 14th Amendment. Likewise, there is no national ballot. Again, each state provides its own ballots, tabulates votes, and certifies its own results. Each of these steps are governed by state law. The Elections EO unilaterally and baselessly attempts to rewrite those laws to prohibit states from counting ballots that arrive after Election Day, even though they were postmarked on or before that date. And again, same thing. The Elections EO violates the Constitution. It interferes with states' inherent sovereignty and their constitutional power to regulate the time, place, and manner of federal elections. It also usurps Congress's power to legislate under the Elections Clause and to appropriate under the Spending Clause. Because Congress has not chosen to implement the changes the president seeks to impose by decree. The critical funds at issue have, in large measure, already been appropriated by Congress. And if these coercive threats were not enough, the Elections EO threatens to target plaintiff states with Department of Justice investigations and potential prosecution. Yes, for violating federal law. If they don't want a Department of Justice and they don't want federal law, wonderful. I'm 100% on board with that. But if you do want those things, well, then the Department of Justice has to enforce federal law. It can't just be there as this paper tiger, this illusion that only serves their needs, just as we spoke about before. And this is, I'm going to wrap this up in just another page here. It bears emphasizing the president has no power to do any of this, according to the lawsuit. Neither the Constitution nor Congress has authorized the president to impose documentary proof of citizenship requirements or to modify state mail ballot procedures. Indeed, the text, structure, and history of the NVRA itself confirm that the federal form can only require citizenship verification by attestation. So if you say you're a citizen, you are. The president cannot add a documentary proof of citizenship requirement to the federal form because even the commission could not impose that requirement. Even if a documentary proof of citizenship requirement were substantively consistent with the NVRA, which it is not, only the commission can change the federal form, and then only in consultation with the states, with the majority approval of its bipartisan commissioners, and through reasoned decision-making subject to the Administrative Procedures Act review. Well, good luck on that. What is the Elections Assistance Commission, if not part of the executive branch? Oh, it's an independent agency. So we'll go after that again. As a consequence, the Elections EO is facially unconstitutional, ultra vires, and an affront to the state's sovereignty and their constitutional authority to regulate the administration of elections. And ultra vires means it's assuming power that is not rightfully its own. It's a usurpation. That's the accusation there. The injuries plaintiff states face are real, imminent, and irreparable. If the provisions of the elections EO challenged in this lawsuit are not enjoined, they will immediately impose significant harm on plaintiff states. Elections administration is complex, and the elections EO effectively orders plaintiff states at breakneck pace to implement trainings, testing, coordination, implementation, and voter education across multiple state agencies and databases. Forcing plaintiff states to complete these tasks effectively orders them to invest enormous time and resources, diverting election staff from vital election priorities like ensuring the operation of state voter registration systems and the sound operation of state and local elections, as well as primary preference elections, which occur regularly. In the compressed and finite timeline of state elections and legislative sessions, this work cannot simply be picked up later. For this reason, implementation of the elections EO, the EO's unlawful directives necessarily comes at the cost of serving plaintiff states, residents, and implementing state priorities. Even with this effort, the elections EO sows confusion and sets the stage for chaos in plaintiff states' election systems, together with the threat of disenfranchisement. So the argument is that the election system is so complicated that implementing these obvious and necessary fixes is too burdensome to be able to run their elections. If your election system is that complicated, it shouldn't exist. If instead plaintiff states choose not to comply with the president's blatantly unconstitutional attempt to legislate by fiat, they will suffer severe cuts in federal funding that will throw the national electoral system into disarray. So they rely on federal funding, but don't want any federal input unless it's from their side instituting new laws. That's amazing. The framers carefully crafted a federal compact that protects the states from this Hobson's choice. If we're talking about what the framers carefully crafted, then our election system clearly is nowhere close to that. For all these reasons, the suit says, wrapping up, the elections EO is unconstitutional, anti-democratic, and un-American. It intrudes on the constitutionally reserved powers of the states and Congress. It purports to subvert laws that Congress has passed in ways that Congress did not allow and in conflict with the text of those laws. Through this action, plaintiff states seek a judgment declaring certain specific provisions of the elections EO to be unlawful and void, and corresponding preliminary and permanent orders enjoining action on or enforcement of those specific provisions by any defendant except the president. So what an effort. Will they see any benefit to that effort? I doubt it. But I believe we probably will see some of these elections laws contested all the way up to the Supreme Court, which means we might get some progress toward the ultimate goal, which is the breakdown of this election system. The election system must be removed, just like the global top-down centralized control system that governs the world economy. The system itself is the problem. The system was set up to achieve results on behalf of the global regime and ultimately the global regime bankers. That is what our government is designed to serve. It's not of, by, and for the people. It's the system itself. That is a problem. All right. AJC3, thank you, Jay. Gifted 5 subscriptions. So I hope people were there to collect that and another 5. He's just sprinkling them out like Salt Bay. Thank you guys all very much for your support today. Jay Gonzalez, 1123, $1. Who was she looking at? That left eye of hers was all over the place. LMAO. And he is referring to Letitia James because her eyes do happen to look in different directions. And it is very unsettling when she is yelling. And one more ad before we get out of here, potentially, if Rumble allows me. Although now they are not allowing. The website seems very angry at me right now. And if we can't do it, we can't do it. And then we'll just move on and move out. We'll come back and live to fight another day. And I think that that's what we're going to do. We'll just ditch that. So, guys, thank you all so much for hanging out and for your attention, for your support, financial and otherwise, all your kind words, etc. I will be back on Wednesday, 6 p.m. for the subscriber stream this week. And I forgot to hit the Rumble Premium thing last week. I do have to clear 2 of those every month. So I'm going to do 2 of those subscriber streams on Rumble Premium. 2 of them, we'll just leave Rumble open. 2 paid subscribers, they'll get the link. All right. So if you don't have Rumble Premium, just watch on Substack. Super simple. Just go to the Substack. It's going to come right up there. There's a developing chat over there as well. So I think that option is the best way going forward. So 6 p.m. on Wednesday. I'll be back on Wednesday. Same reasonable time, same reasonable podcast network. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns don't work. They lied to you about a pandemic, and Joe Biden was never president.
Well,
what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
What's wrong with being an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? What do you think, Max?
Do you want to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times?
Yeah, I think I'd like to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times.
It's not true. It's more true than I would perhaps prefer.
And I will not let you down. We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling. What?
In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com. And for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/imyourmoderator. And I'll see you soon. Down on the range.